Okay, it is 1:30, so we're going to go ahead and get started. Good afternoon, everyone that's here, and welcome to Hireology's 5th annual Elevate, the only human capital-focused event dedicated to retail automotive. My name is Mike McSherry, and I'm the Director of Strategic Partnerships here at Hireology, and I'm lucky enough to be your MC this afternoon. Now, while we had high hopes of hosting our 5th edition of Elevate in person this year, the Delta variant and mandates in the city of Chicago told us otherwise. However, we're so glad that we can still get this impactful content out to you today because the topic of elevating the people operations at our dealerships has never been more critical to our success. And so as we close in on nearly 2 years of living amidst a global pandemic, the auto industry yet again faces unprecedented territory. Vaccines and strong consumer demand earlier in the springtime brought many of our business operations back to almost normal state and also enabled another year of strong profits for our operators. But chip shortages and other supply chain disruptions cast uncertainty over what lies ahead for a lot of retailers out there. And to make matters worse, a record imbalance of open jobs and fewer applicants than ever has complicated dealers' ability to fill open roles with not just the right people, but in some cases, simply enough people. So it's led many of you on the call today in search of new ways to connect with job seekers, move those applicants faster through your hiring process, and enhance your overall hiring process to attract and retain your talent long-term. So all this brings us to today's event and why you're all here. So before we get started with today's content and our speakers, I do have a couple brief housekeeping items that I'd like to cover. First, we will be recording today's session, so keep an eye out for an email after we wrap today with a link to that recording. And second, if you do have any questions along the way, we ask that you drop them in the Q&A box that's located in your window. Most of you familiar with Zoom should probably be able to locate that. And along with the recording after the session, we will send out responses to some of those most frequently asked questions that we received in the Q&A box. So with that housekeeping out of the way, I am thrilled to introduce you to our first speaker this afternoon, Adam Robinson. Adam is the co-founder and CEO of Hireology, where for the past decade, he has led our company on a mission to help businesses succeed by building exceptional teams and workplace cultures. Adam's a nationally recognized keynote speaker, author of The Best Team Wins, Build Your Business Through Predictive Hiring, and is a noted columnist for Inc. magazine. In 3 of the last 4 years, Adam was a finalist for the EY Entrepreneur of the Year Award, and in 2015 was named a top 25 HR industry game changer by Workforce magazine. Under Adam's leadership, Hireology ranked number 4 on the Inc. 500 list of America's fastest growing companies in 2016, and has appeared on the Inc. 5000 list each of the last 5 years. Hireology has been twice recognized nationally as a top 50 business workplace by Inc. magazine and a top company culture by Entrepreneur magazine to boot. Adam, we're so pleased to have you here. The virtual stage is all yours.
Hey, thanks, Mike. And welcome everyone to the 5th annual Elevate. I really appreciate you taking the time to join us virtually today. Like we said earlier, it was a tough decision to go virtual, but this is our reality in the world we live in. And so here we are virtual for the second, and I hope last year in a row, but we think it was the right move because it gives us an opportunity to connect with more of you while keeping everyone safe. As evidenced by today's virtual format, the pandemic certainly isn't over, but I do believe we're at the tail end of it. So today I want to talk about what it takes in this industry to attract and hire top talent in the post-pandemic labor market. And what I am most excited to share are the results of a recent survey we conducted with our automotive customers about what they're doing to overcome today's hiring challenges. So let's dig in. All right, just to give you a little background on myself, I'm Adam Robinson, co-founder and CEO of Hireology. We've been focused on the automotive space since 2014, almost exclusively, and today work with 1 out of every 4 new car franchise dealers in the United States. And so, whether you're a single point store or a member of the management team at a large platform group, my goal today is for you to walk out of here grounded in the current data on what it takes to be successful in hiring, and walking away with 1 or 2 actionable ideas that you can take back to your dealership to help transform hiring to a source of strategic competitive advantage for you and your investors. We've got an all-star lineup here today. I'm so excited to jump right in. So what I have for you today, I've broken down into 4 parts. First, we're going to take a look at some industry changes that came about because of COVID, which I believe are here to stay. Second, I want to take a deeper dive into what today's post-pandemic job seeker needs and expects. Third, we're going to talk about how you can then attract these people to build a modern and robust workforce. And then fourth and finally, how all-in-one HR technology can help you do that. So first, let's touch on some of the unprecedented changes we've seen in the space that previously we thought were temporary due to the pandemic. But as I said before, I believe are actually here to stay. So think back to March of 2020. We were all navigating uncharted territory, and we did what we had to do to survive. I mean, chances are you reduce staff in some capacity, given that in-person sales were basically halted for 2 months, and you just didn't have the revenue to justify keeping everyone on staff. You also implemented social distancing because of the virus, and maybe that was capacity limits at your dealership or requiring appointments only with customers, and you relied much more heavily on technology to facilitate much of the selling process. And I think COVID accelerated the move to digital retailing by probably 3 to 5 years. And so, which arguably is a good thing for the business, and it needed to happen. Combined, these changes made it possible for you to continue selling cars despite all the hardships we were facing at the time. In fact, many of you found that within this new pandemic reality, you were actually able to drive more profit than you were before the pandemic, even at lower volume. An interesting juxtaposition, which John Maleshenko will be covering a little bit later today. So here's a look at some of the headlines, just to demonstrate how widespread and massive the layoffs in the industry were, in our industries were. Experts estimated that in total, dealerships laid off nearly a third of the retail workforce by May of 2020. Our predicted range here at Hireology, just looking at the data that we had, was that up to half could be downsized. We landed at about a third. It was, from manufacturer to supplier to the retail channel, everybody did what they needed to do to make it through. And as I mentioned at the beginning, at Hireology, we actually conducted a survey of our own dealership customers last month. So this is hot off the press data. And what we found in the numbers, track pretty similarly to that. So while a majority of you said your pandemic-related layoffs were in the 0 to 20% range, about 1 in 4 dealerships let more than 20% of their staff go. Now, what's interesting is that in the same survey we conducted of our dealership customers, we found that nearly 71% of dealers are not planning to replace or backfill all of these roles. Now, what this is telling us is that when we implemented all of these changes due to the pandemic, what dealers found was that not only did it allow you to continue selling cars, but it actually allowed you to operate far more efficiently and sell more cars with fewer people on staff, right? And if you've heard me speak over the last 5 elevates, I've been on somewhat of a soapbox saying we are overstaffed in this business. Labor needs to get more efficient. Well, now we've been forced to do that. And this part, the more with less part, is what I think is here to stay. And the numbers from our survey prove it. In a few years from now, when health concerns related to COVID are a thing of the past, I think very few of you will have the same number of people on your team than you did before pandemic 2020. And it's because the pandemic forced us to make changes to your business model that I think will turn out to be far better for all of us and for the industry. And okay, so to dig in a little deeper here, we asked our customers what percentage of those roles they're looking to backfill, and half said they're only going to backfill about 20% or less of them. So regardless of how many people we let go, about half of dealers are saying that they really only need about 1 in 5 of those people back in order to continue operating at the rate and profit level that they want to. We'll get into this a little further down, but I think the big reason behind this is many of you found that the people you did retain were your very best, right? The most efficient, the highest performers. And many of them had the skills to do more, right? In an expansion of the role that they previously had. So in addition to selling more cars online, you had people who were much more efficient and had a wider range of skills. So we were able to sell more cars than we did when we were at full capacity, right? So higher volume, lower headcounts, a recipe for the record profits that this industry and the retail channel enjoyed over the last 18 months. I think another factor that's contributing to this backfill pattern of 1 in 5 is the chip shortage. And so similarly, 1 in 5 of our dealership customers today are saying they're reducing the number of open roles they have because they don't have the cars. And I think the takeaway here is that we're going to feel the effects of the pandemic for a long time, either in the labor force and or in the supply chain. And I think most of you understand this. So we're weathering multiple storms, let's say, with fewer but more impactful and more efficient staff. So in addition to this reduced headcount concept being a permanent change, in my opinion, the shift that many of you made to digital retailing at the onset of the pandemic is here to stay as well. In fact, one study found that 75% of dealerships say they made a permanent switch to digital retailing and marketing in 2020, similar to how operating with less allowed you to be more efficient and drive more sales. Digital retailing offers the same benefits. Now, we've been talking about the opportunity of digital retailing for 10 years in this business. COVID forced us to get there fast. So long after the pandemic is over, I know that many of you will continue operating this way, not only because it works, but because it's just table stakes these days. Car buyers today are younger, they're digital natives, they expect to research and buy cars online, much like they do any other purchase. We've been talking about that coming forever. Now it's here and it's here to stay. And they're going to shop with the dealerships that empower them to do so and an experience that caters to where they are. So I think what all of this means is that dealerships are realizing that what matters most in driving success in the store is your people. It's not about simply filling as many sales positions as possible with warm bodies. It's about finding the right people for your dealership. You need to be hiring the best of the best, and they need to have different skills and abilities than the people you may have hired before the pandemic. And when you do find the right people, you can actually drive more volume and revenue and profit with fewer people on the roster. But filling open roles with the right people in our space is a lot easier said than done. According to Hireology's recent survey, despite dealerships' plans for not filling every single role lost at the beginning of the pandemic, 70% of dealers have more than 3 jobs open right now at their store, right? So stores have 70% have 3 or more open jobs right now, and about a third of them have more than 7 open heads. So even if you know you need to find better, more skilled workers, it is really hard to find these people. And of course, the reason behind this is today's hiring crisis, or what people in the media like to call a talent shortage. Businesses across all industries are looking to hire as we all get vaccinated, as cases drop, and as a return to some semblance of normalcy comes into play. The problem here is that the people who were laid off at the onset of the pandemic aren't necessarily jumping back into the workforce. You've read the headlines. They've had time to reprioritize their careers. They've got different needs and expectations about what they want out of their professional life. And so this makes it really tough for you to hire the best if you haven't made changes in what you're offering to address these changing expectations. As I've said for the last 10 years, jobs are products, and these jobs have to be retailed like the digital products that they are, just like you retail cars and just like you retail your service. Jobs are products, they've got to be retailed like products. And so that leads us to the next big topic I want to cover today: evolving job seeker expectations. And so if you're sitting here in the conference today wondering how you're going to get that dealership staffed, this is content that is going to be directly relevant to you as you think about how to position yourself as an employer of choice in your community. Much like many of the changes you made during the pandemic, Job seekers have made changes to their career expectations and their aspirations. And at Hireology, we conducted another survey of recent job seekers. We do this every year and announce the results here at Elevate. So we dig into the reasons behind some of these challenges filling open roles. And so we surveyed 5,000 job seekers in our industry across a variety of auto-related industries and retail. And what we found is that many of these changing job seeker needs and expectations that came about because of the pandemic are permanent, full stop. So let's dig in. First, we found that job seekers are much less loyal now than they were before the pandemic. The pandemic fundamentally changed the workforce in expectations in so many ways. And many job seekers realized that they do not have to stay in jobs that they don't like. They do not have to stay in jobs that aren't meeting their needs. And they've reprioritized what they want in their careers. So whether that's higher pay, more flexibility, more career growth, the result is they're feeling less loyal to their employers unless their employers are delivering what they expect. And so for dealerships, this can be great if you're delivering, or it can be super challenging if you're not. And so it means your employees are less loyal to you, but it also might mean that they're less loyal to their employers in other industries, so we can reach in there and attract them into ours. Bottom line, what this means is you've got to be on your A game. You've got to work harder than ever to retain people. People are quitting in record numbers across all industries, right? They call it the big quit. It's still going on. And it's also an opportunity to reach people in other industries who may be unhappy, deliver on their expectations, and show them what a great industry ours is. And we also found that job seekers are applying to significantly more jobs than they had applied to in the past. Now, this might go against some of the media's portrayal of job seekers today, that people are hesitant to enter the workforce. The reality is that people who are motivated and who are out there actively seeking roles, they're applying to a lot of different roles because they have plenty of options. They want to find what works best for them. So in years past, when we had done this survey, we'd only get about 1 in 4 people who indicated they were applying to more than 10 jobs in a job search. That's a lot, right? That's a time-intensive process. This year, we found about 45%, a 4x increase, applied to more than 10 jobs when looking for a new employment opportunity, and another 24% applying to between 5 and 10 jobs. So what this is telling us is number one, for 75% of your applicants, you are competing with between 5 and 10 or more other employers for that person. That's a highly competitive marketplace. There's an opportunity to reach job seekers, but you just have to, again, figure out a way to meet their needs and stand out amongst the dozens of other jobs they're applying to. You just can't post a job and pray for people anymore. It doesn't work that way. The competition for the best talent is off the charts in a way we haven't seen, frankly, ever. We also found that top job seekers are getting hired really quickly. 43% of our respondents said their last job search, everything from the initial job research to applying, interviewing, and accepting an offer, took less than 2 weeks. Now, that is remarkably fast. It's the fastest cycle time I've ever seen. And I've heard some customers say it takes them 2 weeks just to respond to an applicant sometimes. So the people who are out there looking for work and eager to take a new position are moving very fast. They want to move fast. And they choose the employer that connects with them quickly and meets that need. So if you're taking 2 weeks, 1 week, 3 days even just to respond to applicants, you're losing. The chances of you competing successfully against 12 other employers when you're the last one to respond, think about it with car buyer leads. The last to respond rarely gets the deal. The first to respond wins the deal 60% of the time. Those are universal metrics. They apply to the recruiting process as well. Next, we found that job seekers today are using their mobile phones for much of the process. So this is an acceleration of a trend. 46% of respondents in our survey said they're completing the entire recruiting and hiring process on their mobile device. That's half of respondents. This is also a pretty remarkable number. So just a few years ago, we never saw numbers like this. As the workforce gets younger and mobile phones continue to advance, this number will only go up. So you need to be creating an experience for your candidates that is possible to complete easily, the operative word, easily on a mobile device. And this is something we'll dig into more in the next section of the presentation. And the final takeaway from our survey that I want to share with you today is that automotive has an employer branding problem. We asked job seekers which industries they viewed positively, and only 27% said they viewed working in the auto industry positively, tied for the lowest along with retail and gym and wellness. So factors they listed were things like inflexible hours, that's a perception now perhaps, low or inconsistent pay, or just overall reputation of the macro opinion of dealership culture. Again, not necessarily truth, but it's perception. Inside dealerships all play big roles in the numbers you're looking at. And I know much of these numbers and these reasons indicate kind of a stereotypical view of the industry, but you just can't change people's perception without doing things differently slowly over time. So you have to do everything you can to fight these perceptions and market your opportunities in a way that go directly at the things that we know people are the most concerned about when working here: hours, pay, flexibility. And so you can show your applicants that you're a great place to work and that what you offer can meet or exceed their needs. And again, this is something we're going to dig into shortly here. So how do you bring all this together? How do you operate with fewer people and truly focus on building a top-notch workforce while also trying to navigate the toughest labor market we've ever seen? You need to modernize your processes in order to modernize your workforce. So what does this look like? Well, it involves an enhancement to your entire hiring and HR effort. It starts from when you design and post open roles and extends to how you market your employment brand, and then to what you do once someone's hired. And so when there's a lot of change you can make to increase your efficacy here, there's a lot you can do, but I've broken it down into the 6 most important things you can do, which I'll talk about right now. First, one way dealerships are building a modern workforce is changing the definition of the typical retail worker. So instead of sending out pre-pandemic job descriptions that might bring in the same type of person you hired before you learned to do more with less, nearly 40% of you said in our survey that you're changing the skills and work history required for these roles, and you're looking for people with different types of experience and a wider range of abilities. So how are dealerships redefining what it means to work in retail? Well, according to the results of our survey, you're looking for a range of skills that you might not have thought to consider before. Things like a good grasp of consumer technology, very, very strong communication, written and verbal, diverse professional experience outside the auto space. Go figure, right? That I now talk to dealerships, the majority of whom say they would rather have people from outside the industry, which is a complete inversion of the conversation I was having 5 years ago when I'm trying to convince dealers to look outside the industry, right? So someone who has a desire to grow and handle shifting priorities and have proven themselves in other industries looking to make a change, those are great candidates. This is really important to achieving that fewer but better goal. In order to do more with less, you need to have different types of people on board with diverse and broad professional backgrounds and histories. And that is really the key to operating effectively in a way that the consumer wants to see today. Now, of course, you have to do more than just change your job descriptions. You've got to be really intentional in the hiring process to ensure that you're getting this right. So that means adding in steps, right? Taking a little bit more time, adding steps to your hiring process that you might not have used before, such as conducting planned and quality interviews where you ask everyone the same questions in order to easily compare, running background checks, skills tests, and reference checks to ensure that the people you're hiring have the skills and experience that they say they have. So every seat matters so much more now. And in the past, the auto industry has relied more on old school forms of hiring where you hire people, it's the old proverbial flood the floor, and 1 out of 10 make it a year. You're hiring people with relationships and networks, and that's important, but it's just not going to cut it as the sole means of identifying talent, given the types of candidates that you've got to hire in order to win in today's market. So once you've redefined who you want to attract in your dealership, you have to build out a great employment brand that actually encourages them to want to come work for you. So another key component of building a modern workforce is employment branding, which is the practice of marketing, packaging all the perks and uniques that make your dealership a great place to work. As I said, much like you would market or retail your car to consumers. So exactly what should you be advertising? Well, of course, this will differ from dealership to dealership and market to market, but here are some of the things that our dealership customers are offering to attract more talent. Higher pay is the top offering. You don't have to look very far to see that wage inflation is very, very real. Transitory is an interesting word. Expectations of higher pay, I think, are a little more sticky than Jerome Powell might think. Higher pay, number one, but many dealerships are also embracing things like offering flexible work schedules. And this is one of those things that, what it costs you is management time and change. But the payoff is so much greater than just throwing more money at people. And then finally, career growth opportunities. So we can pay more, we can shift more of the on-target earnings into base, we can make it more competitive. But the thing that you can do that costs less and just takes your time and attention is offering and building in flexibility into the way people work. Again, it doesn't necessarily matter what you do. As long as what you're doing matches your expectations, job seeker expectations in your markets where you're trying to hire. So your results may vary, but here's what your peers are doing. So how do you make these offerings known? Well, let's say you have a program for educational growth opportunities for your workforce, right? You're paying tuition reimbursement or some kind of training budget. You might feature that on your career site, along with testimonials, video testimonials, ideally, from existing team members who have used and benefited from the program. Maybe use social media to showcase the benefits of your training program, or even run ads on Facebook to talk about it. I mean, Facebook's jobs platform is the single most important new recruiting channel in our industry right now. You might also highlight it in job descriptions. So people who come across the role on different sites as your jobs get distributed out there can see this benefit right away. It's a matter of making these changes known across multiple channels so that there are several touch points where job seekers can consume this information and see that your offering might be better than the other employers they're considering. Remember, just assume you're competing with 10 other employers for that person. What are you doing that's different? Here's an example of one of our customers that does this really well, and they're at the top of the board every single year in innovation in their employment branding. On the top of their career site, they reference putting people's career in gear with a quote from a team member about how they've been able to develop their skills. They also highlight things like benefits, vacation days, and mentorship program. So if you go to Fox Motors into their career site, you'll see videos, testimonials, and a site retailing their career opportunities directly to the consumer in a way that is just so highly effective. All right, so you've redefined your ideal employee profile. You're willing to go outside the industry. You've built a great brand, and you've configured your role for the things people want, right? Pop quiz time, pay and benefits, flexibility, career path. There's your top three. Now you have to make sure you market your open roles on as many different channels as possible. So we call this job distribution in the recruiting business. But in the same survey of dealerships I referenced earlier, what we found is that in order to fill their open roles faster, 53% of dealers said they're posting jobs on a wider variety of channels. So this means going beyond job boards and considering factors like search engine optimization for your job descriptions to ensure that your jobs show up in Google searches and social media channels like Facebook. As I said earlier, jobs on Facebook is proving to be one of the top sources of talent among Hireology customers. And Bob Lanham, our friend who manages the Facebook retail sector for that company, is such a big proponent, just really a fantastic partner for helping our dealers figure out how to get this right. But when we asked our customers which channels are bringing in the most hires, so not applicants, but the actual hires, job boards still top the list, but it really is a draw between job boards and the dealership's career site. So career sites bring in almost as many hires as job boards at the macro level, while about 18% say that their employee referrals are their top source of hire, and about 8% cite social media. So the takeaway here isn't to just invest equally across all of these channels, but thinking of recruiting as a sales and marketing process, you want to run the numbers to figure out which source is working best for you. So if it's job boards, great, keep investing. But if you're finding that job boards are bringing in a ton of applicants, but they rarely convert, you should invest less in those channels and instead spend more on the sources that are actually bringing in the applicants who are a good fit. Again, if you've ever worked on the marketing side of automotive retail, I mean, this is no different than running marketing campaigns to consumers. You want to do more of what's working and reallocate dollars away from things that are working less effectively. One applicant sourcing channel that I want to dig deeply into is employee referral programs. This is the fourth big takeaway I want to cover. 76% of dealerships in the United States said they have an employee referral program, while about 18% said it was their top source of talent. If you're not in that 18%, it should be your best source of talent. So 3 out of 4 stores have a referral program, but only 1 in 5 say it's their best source of talent. That spread represents a real opportunity in the business to do 2 things. Number 1, to incentivize your best people to become your best recruiters, and 2, to give your best people an economic incentive and a way to make additional money helping you grow your business. I mean, it just is win-win all around. And so referral programs have a lot of potential to bring in better talent, simply because when you ask your employees to refer their peers, they typically only refer people they truly believe will be a good fit. I mean, who in their right mind would refer to someone that they would absolutely loathe having to see every day in the store, right? They're going to refer people they like and trust. And so in essence, your employees are doing the vetting for you. And typically these people perform far better once hired and are much more likely to stick around longer term too. So when it comes to exactly how many hires are coming from referral programs, 30% of dealerships in our survey are saying that more than 20% of their hires came from these programs. So this is great, right? Referrals are a highly cost-effective way to reach more qualified talent. But this number can be higher. Like I mentioned before, referrals typically end up becoming better candidates and are more likely to become hires, and they're more likely to stay for 3 years than any other channel. And so this is a really good source of talent. Plus sources like job boards can be pretty expensive, and they get expensive really quickly. So even if you're paying out bonuses to your team for referring new hires, your cost per applicant and cost per hire is so much less expensive going with referral programs. So, if you figure out your cost per applicant or cost per hire, right, take your recruitment marketing expenses, divide by the number of hires you make over the same period of time, that's your cost per hire. I'm guessing it's somewhere in the $3,000 range. That's, approximately the industry average. Why not pay employees $1,000, $2,000 to refer someone who stays for you for 6 months or a year, right? You're lowering your cost per hire. You're getting better people who are likely to stay longer and perform better. It's just a winning trade on both sides of it. So if you're one of the 75% that has a referral program, but who are driving less than 20% of your hires from these programs, there are things you can do to boost that number. So some steps you can take include, number one, defining a clear policy. Make it known exactly how the program works, who can participate, and what the process is. Second, you want to campaign and communicate that you have open roles and that there are incentives to help fill them. This is the most important step. People need to hear things multiple times before it sinks in. Just ask my children. Prioritize your open roles. Share it often across multiple channels, whether that's through internal email campaigns, flyers around the office, or email signatures. What you don't do is announce it once and hope people remember. That just doesn't work. Make it really easy. People aren't going to participate if you make them fill out long forms online or log into an app every time they want to submit a referral, or if they have to remind their friend to put their name in a field on your career site. It just doesn't get it done. It's not in their job description to recruit for you, so don't make it difficult for them. You want to make it really easy. With technology like Employ Us, which is a platform we recently acquired, you can make it as simple as just scanning a QR code, launching a chatbot, and getting that referral placed. And finally, you want to match the incentive to the value of the role. People are going to work harder to find peers to refer if the payout is worth it. So for example, if you're looking for higher skilled talent like technicians or experts in digital marketing, you need to pay more, right? $1,000, $2,000, $5,000 for master techs, than you would for someone like seasonal sales associates. Employee referral programs hold the most potential for driving hires at your dealership. The key is making sure you get your program right and you make it easy so you can maximize the return on time and investment. Once you begin to attract the ideal applicant to your open roles, make sure that you keep them interested. And so the next big change you can make is to better connect with your workforce by enhancing your process, right? This is a consumer-focused effort that starts with mobile. Given the stats we covered earlier that show how we've reached a mobile tipping point in hiring, mobile is a critical component of the hiring process. It's really the only platform that matters, frankly. And if any part of your process is too difficult for applicants and candidates to complete on a mobile device, they can and will move to one of the 12 other jobs they've applied to, right? So your homework assignment, I give it every year at Elevate, your homework assignment is to get out your phone and try to apply to a job at your own dealership. Ask yourself the question, was that a good experience? Was it easy? Or was it super frustrating? If it's frustrating and not easy, this is where you start, right? Start with a mobile-friendly job application on your career site that's easy for people to navigate and read on a phone. It also means you have to have mobile-friendly application forms. This centers around what we call responsive design in UX parlance, but if your applications require someone on a mobile device to have to pinch and zoom in, it's really difficult to complete the fields. Don't make them rewrite their resume with their thumbs. Eventually people get frustrated and just bounce. Additionally, when it comes to the applications, they need to be short. Don't make them fill out 25 fields. That makes it easier for you to get the information you want, but that is not a process designed for your consumer, your job seeker. Name, contact info, like an email, in a field for resume upload that's optional is really the most you should require. Most people don't have a resume on their phone that they can upload. And so if you require a resume file, you're going to take your bounce rate up by about 60% more than you would if you made that optional. You can get it later. You're not asking for a credit report when someone just tells you they're interested in that vehicle, right? You want to get them in the process and get the information after there's a little bit of qualification and commitment. And finally, you want to embrace candidates' desire to communicate via texting or SMS. So if half of job seekers are completing the entire hiring process on their phones, that means they're trying to compose emails back and forth to you and your hiring manager from a phone. Smartphones come a long way. I don't know about you, but emailing on the go, it's not the worst thing in the world, but it's just probably not most people's favorite. Email's cluttered. It's just more difficult to email from your phone than it is to text. if I get 300 emails a day, I may read 20 of them that I recognize as important, and the rest I just get to when I get to. But my text messages, they get cleared every single day. So reach out to them via text and make it really easy for them to respond. Candidates tell us they want text messages instead of emails. It's also important that your entire hiring process feels smooth from the candidate's perspective. Again, we are retailing a product, so this experience has to be exceptional. If it feels like you're unorganized, that the process is clunky and that you're not communicating internally, that's a reflection of management. And the candidate will take that as an indicator of what it's like to work for you. It needs to be really seamless. And the best way to smooth out this process is to define predictable and repeatable hiring steps that everyone in your organization who touches this process can understand and execute. That's the recruiter, that's the hiring manager. That way, everyone knows what to do next. No steps are forgotten. Information isn't repeated unnecessarily, and it feels really seamless for the candidate. So typically, our most successful customers have some combination of these steps in their process. Now, of course, your process needs to work for you. So if you have different steps or they're in a different order, that's perfectly fine, as long as it's defined and easily understood across the team. And once you make a hire, you can't stop there, right? The final component of connecting with the modern workforce is ensuring smooth post-hire management. That starts with onboarding, right? You sell a vehicle and the delivery is terrible, the customer experience is not great. You make a job offer and their onboarding experience is terrible, that's not great. The first few weeks of an employee's experience with you are the most critical weeks to drive retention. One study found that nearly 70% of new hires who experienced a great onboarding process are likely to stick around for at least 3 years. So what does great onboarding look like? Well, that includes everything from the streamlined handoff of employee information from your hiring system to your payroll to your benefit system. On top of that, it includes a thoughtful and very well-planned first few days on the job. So don't make your new hires sit around filling out paperwork. It can all be done beforehand digitally. Instead, roll out the red carpet, right? Plan their first day with a welcome meeting and lunches, introductions to the team, and a tour of the facility. Give them swag like t-shirts and water bottles, and make sure they have the resources and technology logins they need to do their jobs effectively. Make people chase down the tools they need to be successful at their job. Now, retention is more than just onboarding. Once your new hire is fully integrated into your team, sometimes, most dealerships, that's 30 to 60 days. Everything you do to manage them post-hire, from payroll to benefits administration to shift scheduling, you really got to look at these processes. They need to be streamlined, accurate, and efficient. If it's hard to go to work for you, if it's hard to pick a shift, if it's hard to get paid, if it's hard to update tax withholdings or get my benefits card resent, the whole experience is less. And with all the options in the market, what that means is that when it's right, it's good for the employee, it's good for the business. When it's not right, these things can really impact the way your employees feel about you as an employer, right? So it's this thought process that HR technology has moved from a back office administrative function to a market-facing retail-like experience for the most important assets you have, which are your people. Lastly, I wanted to touch on what it takes to get all this right. Many of these big changes we discussed that are necessary in order to connect with the modern workforce are hard to do manually or with disparate tools. You've got applicants coming in from all over the place. You've got to move fast. Once you get hired, you've got to do a whole bunch of things to not only serve them and to ensure their success, but to stay compliant. So bringing all this together, it's a lot easier when you use an all-in-one HR and hiring solution. Putting it all together is really the name of the game here. And so when you're operating with disparate systems, it's just harder to execute all these things well. You end up conducting these processes in silos. You're manually re-entering data. Your new hire shows up to the accounting department wondering where the paycheck is, and accounting wants to know who they are because they're not in the system. I mean, these things happen. We've all experienced them. It slows you down. It makes you feel, makes everything feel clunky for your employees. It creates errors. It just overall is a drag on performance. And so What we want to do here is bring these tools together. And as I said before, put people at the center of the process. You want to design your HR strategies with your talent in the middle, not your systems in the middle and the person running a gauntlet to figure stuff out. Candidates who come through job boards or referrals or even your career site are all funneled into a single system. They're communicated from a central platform. You can then order drug screens or reference checks from the same system. Once they're hired, all that information's in the same place, pushes to payroll, that payroll sync to your DMS. That is the way we need to be doing it these days. Anything less than that puts you as at a disadvantage to other employers, but to larger platform operators in the business who are ahead of you in this area. And when all of these things are connected and live within a centralized system, you can just move faster on hiring top talent. You reduce errors, which reduces costs. You create a better experience, which drives retention. It keeps everyone happier and focused on serving your retail consumers. And for those on the HR team, it's all about focusing on the right things and less on the frustrations of trying to jump between systems. And I know those of you on this call know exactly what I'm talking about here. It's just a better way to do it. It takes some effort and investment, but the payoff is there, and it's arguably table stakes for operating right now. And that's everything I have for you today. To summarize everything we covered, first, the changes you made to survive the pandemic are here to stay. Fewer people on staff doing more, absolutely the model. Job seeker expectations have changed too, I think, permanently. So in order to hire top performers, you've just got to adjust your process and what you're offering. And that requires you to change everything from how you source to how you hire to what you do once that person is accepted an offer and is on board. It's a lot to handle on your own manually or with siloed systems. And that's why the future of HR and hiring in our industry involves end-to-end platforming that modernizes the process and frankly puts us on a level playing field with the other employers out there who have been doing these things for longer than most dealerships have in this business. All right, with that, I want to turn things over to my friend Mike McSherry to take us into a break. Mike, back to you, my friend.
Thanks, A-Rob. And as always, fantastic insights. Gosh, the evolution of our business operations to the workforce and evolution of job seeker expectations, you can't help but notice the strong parallels between today's job seeker and many of the customers that come through our service lane and our sales process at the dealership. Just taking, as Adam pointed out, taking some cues and learnings from the retail customer experience, porting them over to our applicant experience, the applicant experience that we want to provide, it could all serve us very well at our stores. I just wanted to call out that we did have quite a few audience questions. Thank you for that interaction. As a reminder, we will share responses to those questions along with a copy of the recording of today's session and a copy of all the slides. So keep an eye out for an email coming from Hireology with that. You can also find a lot more detailed analysis on many of the statistics Adam reviewed in Hireology's annual State of Hiring ebook. That's always available on Hireology's website, www.hireology.com. Go on there. Feel free to check that out and download it at your convenience. So as Adam mentioned, we are going to take a quick 3-ish minute break. But first, I did want to call everyone's attention to the QR code that you see up on your screen right now. Hireology partnered with our fantastic friends over at Automotive News to gather some insights from the dealer body on how diversity, equity, and inclusion, otherwise DEI, efforts have been going within their own dealerships. So we'd like you all to participate in this survey. So if you don't mind putting your phone up, scan that QR code and follow the steps, we'd really appreciate it. So on that note, everybody feel free to take a quick couple-minute break and we'll be back here right after 2:20 Central Time. We've learned absolutely that over the years, it's always important to hear from industry experts, but it's just as important to hear from your peers out there in the field, working at the retail level day in and day out. And that's why joining us today is a very forward-thinking member of the dealership community who's here to share his experience in redefining the post-pandemic dealership workforce. So I'd like to welcome John Malishenko from Germain Automotive to the Zoom stage. After graduating college, John joined the automotive OEM world, working for various manufacturers and working with hundreds of dealerships throughout the country. The majority of that 15 years were spent working with Toyota and Lexus, both at their Tier 1 and Tier 2 offices. And in 2001, John joined the Germain Automotive organization as GM of their new Lexus store in Columbus, Ohio. Now, after 7 years at the helm there, John became the director of operations and eventually the COO, his right-hand executive to Steve Germain and the Germain Automotive Group. The group today currently consists of 20 brands and 18 rooftops with over 1,100 associates spread throughout stores in Ohio, Florida, and Michigan. The Germain Group's mission is to attract, develop, and retain exceptional people with the goal of creating loyalty beyond reason, one customer at a time. And with that, I'm pleased to welcome John. John, the Zoom is all yours.
Thanks, Mike. Good to be with everybody today. The topic that we're looking to discuss is redefining the post-pandemic dealership workforce. Fairly broad topic, but an exciting discussion. So appreciate the intro. Let's talk a little bit about what we encountered. March 2020, COVID hit everyone hard. I mean, we were faced with tough decisions, as everybody was, and had to make changes we never thought we'd have to make. They say that necessity is the mother of invention. Well, looking back, that was absolutely the case with us. In fact, a couple of months prior, I sat with my director of operations in Florida, and we felt like there was a market correction coming, and we had actually discussed what we jokingly called our doomsday plan. And the discussion was, if we had to, what's essential? What would we change? What would we keep? What would we get rid of? And that ended up being sort of a prophetic discussion as we experienced what we did in March. So today I want to talk a little bit about our story, and how we, in reducing staff and lead providers, we actually increased productivity and profitability. Along the way, we also improved associate and customer engagement and reduced turnover. Sort of counterintuitive. And while the idea of less is more is counterintuitive to some, in our case, it's paid huge dividends. I'll also give you some lessons we learned from our experience during the pandemic that you can take back to your dealerships. So let's talk about our response to the pandemic and what specifically we did that ultimately started what became a complete re-engineering of the organization. So step one, send everyone home, turn everything off. In Ohio and Michigan, our showrooms were shut down, and while fixed operations were still open, we had some pretty strict shutdown orders. It wasn't the same everywhere in the country, but in this case, it was the appropriate response. In retrospect, it was probably also the most important thing we did. Although it wasn't intentional, we essentially wiped the slate clean and began the process of rebuilding our stores to align with what ended up being a very new and different marketplace. This was the hard part. We furloughed about 60% of our workforce and left a skeleton crew of managers back to manage any leads and calls that came in, typically a general manager and a sales manager. Ironically, with our most experienced, autonomous, and talented people at the store, interesting things started to happen. We weren't sure what to expect. We weren't sure how many cars we would sell, but the calls started to come. People wanted to transact. The difference was they wanted to transact differently. So let's talk a little bit about that. Pacing, spacing, and virtual transactions. These were dynamics that evolved out of COVID that really started to change, our organization, starting with virtual transaction. So the shift to virtual was really the only option we had in Ohio and Michigan. And people couldn't come in the store, didn't really want to, but they needed a car and they wanted to transact. So we started asking each customer one simple question up front. How do you want to buy the car? This is not a question we'd ever asked. And, oftentimes the response was, well, what are my options? In this way, we actually began to co-create a transaction with the customer. It was more collaborative. And in most cases, it was very different than what we'd done historically. Almost 70% of the transaction was being done virtually. We were negotiating price putting trade values on cars. And we were doing that via text, via phone, via video chat, really at the discretion of the customer. When we did deliver the vehicle, sometimes, we delivered it at the dealership. Oftentimes we were delivering it in a parking lot of a restaurant. So again, in that way, it was a very different type of transaction, but, we decided to be adaptable. We decided to move towards the customer, but we became very virtual very quickly, and it started to change the nature of the transactions. So let's talk about pacing and spacing. One of the dynamics of a transaction that's more virtual, with 70% of the process remote, customers were making one visit to the store to consummate, and even then they didn't want to be there long. These dynamics presented an opportunity to control workflow through intentional scheduling. So think about a doctor's office. The doctor doesn't say, when do you want to come in? Which is often what we would say to a customer trying to schedule an appointment. The doctor says, how about Tuesday at 4? That doesn't work. How about Thursday at 3? So we started a process of trying to balance out workflow. We were staffed down. So with people working from home or at home, they were more able to adapt their schedules, and we were then able to sell cars throughout the day and throughout the week. So that shift in workflow, that leveling out, so to speak, of the workflow, supported a lower level of staffing, plus the added benefit of staying busy throughout the day. Gone were the periods of intense periods of activity on a weekend, followed by long periods of activity, oftentimes in the early parts of the week. It was a much more efficient model for sure. And as we experienced these changes, we saw an opportunity. We saw a window of opportunity as we started to get busier and business started to pick up. We had to make a decision about who to bring back and how many people to bring back. Business began to really strengthen in late May and June, and then there was evidence already. We were selling a lot of cars and generating a lot of revenue, and we were doing it with fewer people than we ever thought was possible, partially because of the transaction being more virtual, partially because we were spreading the workflow out. But all those things were creating a new and different environment. So as we decided to rebuild the stores, we had to sort of embrace these new realities and not try to become what we were prior to the start of the pandemic. So there was evidence that we could produce more with less and still create a win-win for our associates and our customers. And throughout all this, that was our goal. Everybody had to win in the deal, not just the enterprise, but the associates and the customers. If we couldn't do that, if we couldn't ensure that, then we weren't interested in making the change. So that was a common sort of, compass point for us. As such, we wanted to guard against a return to business as usual, because business wasn't usual. And we didn't want to really have to refurlough anyone. So we were very thoughtful about who we brought back and what. This mantra, forced us to sort of be intentional and thoughtful about staffing levels, and it served us well. This sort of led to, a term that's been thrown about a lot, that we use a lot, called fewer but better. We were able to continue operating with fewer people. Obviously, when we brought people back, we brought back people, our best folks, and the folks that we thought were best suited to this new environment. And in doing so, even as our volumes returned to historic norms, we were able to see, for example, sales consultants. We averaged about 11 cars per sales consultant prior to the pandemic. That rose to 16. That's a 40-50% shift in productivity. When you take that across an entire organization for an entire year, the impacts are staggering. So these dynamics were allowing us to be more productive with fewer people. As an added benefit, we're fewer but better, and we'll talk about what that allows in the outcome section. But now with inventory shortages and a challenging labor market, we're less affected due to this fewer but better approach. The the leanness of the organization is well aligned to what we're experiencing in the market. So let's talk about outcomes. How do we know this works? As I started to really dig in and try to understand what was happening, the data was really compelling. So let's take a look at outcomes. So overall, when you push more work through the hands of better people, the overall quality of the work improves. So again, let's think about sales consultants. Whereas we had, let's use an example of 10 sales consultants. You have 2 that are, let's call them A's. You have 3 that are B's, 3 C's, and maybe 2 D's, right? Some new people. By eliminating 2 D's and a C, the overall quality of the work improved by 20%. So that's a 20% improvement in conversion rate. That's a 20% improvement in gross. That's a 20% improvement in customer experience. So that really is at the core of what we started to see in outcome. We were putting more work in the hands of better people, and they were doing better work. They were also making fewer mistakes. Your best people not only can do more work and do it better, they're experienced. They don't make mistakes. They don't require as much attention. So there were incredible efficiencies. The managers, ironically, we were setting records and we had fewer people, yet everybody was less stressed because the people that were coming to work knew what to do. They showed up and they were busy because we were balancing the work out through this appointment scheduling and workflow. People were busy from the beginning to the end of the day. And that's another reason they were able to get so much more done. So workflow is an important part of this. Better people and fewer people are a big part of this too. There was improved compensation for those that remained. So we saw a higher level of engagement in our associates. We saw less turnover. We were very thoughtful not to burn them out. They were selling more cars, but they were actually working less hours. We started to close the stores earlier to try to protect, people's quality of life. But because the workflow was spread, this didn't require anybody to work longer. And that was a key focal point for us. As I said, less turnover, higher average tenure, and ultimately massive increases in gross per employee or revenue per person. So here's some hard numbers. This is August of 2019, which if you think about it, right, was the last time, for lack of a better term, we operated in a normal world, right? And now 2 years down the road, this is what we look like. So same stores, in 2019, we had 1,100 associates. Today we have 970. So somewhere between a 13 and 15% reduction in overall staff. This is what's happened to our gross. So this is our year-to-date gross through August for the organization. It was 85 million in 2019, almost 18 million in 2021, almost a 50%. So this is total revenue. So I've got 970 people versus 1,100 producing 50% more gross. The net effect is a gross per associate number that went from, just under 10,000 to over 15,000. So those dynamics of fewer but better were powerful. And everywhere we turned and everywhere we looked, we kept seeing, really, these numbers were not numbers that we would have ever, on our most optimistic day predicted. And it transcended the issues of front end gross that were being driven by, reduced inventories and increased demand. We saw efficiencies and revenue increases in all areas of the business and all departments throughout this entire time period. So let's talk about the lessons we learned. Ultimately, I think the biggest thing we did was, we let the customers take the lead. We let go of all that we knew about, sales process and selling, and because we were in a very different situation. By asking them how they wanted to buy the car, we created a collaborative experience, and the defenses went down. And the process was easier, faster, and ultimately the customers were much happier. Most of our customers tell us this is the way they want to buy their cars now and in the future. They did it initially to stay safe. Now they want to do it because it's just a better way to buy a car. They wanted to make sure they were safe, so we adapted. And in a market that is as volatile and uncertain as we're in, and as much change as there has been and will continue to be, adaptability may be the single most important attribute for any organization. We have a saying these days, which is we're open to everything and attached to nothing when it comes to realigning to the market. Digging your heels in and defending old positions is not something that's going to probably be very effective in this environment. We also learned there were a lot of inefficiencies in our processes. So we had to be willing to sort of let go of old processes, evaluate them, ask whether they still made sense, whether they aligned to the changing market. So making changes in how we scheduled appointments, closing the store earlier, and a myriad of other things didn't reduce what we sold. It actually made us more efficient, more productive. And as I said, the win-win-win that we're always looking for, was supported. Wins for the enterprise, wins for the associate, wins for the customer. And lastly, we started to redefine how we hired. The people that we brought back weren't the people that you typically would be the traditionally the top people. They had different skills, their ability to use tech, their ability to adapt to a virtual transaction, and understanding of the entire process, and primarily people that were adaptable and flexible to making changes as the marketplace required it became a huge part of how we decided to bring people back, and continues to be when we look at how we hire people. Now we're over a year later, we've adjusted our hiring process to help us find the right people, whether it's changing roles and job descriptions, relying more heavily on employee referrals, because nobody knows better what's required in this new reality than the people that are doing it. So employee referrals, I think, move up in relevance as a result. We had to do things differently. We had to do more than just post jobs on job boards in order to find the right people. So we could continue our fewer but better approach. Every time we hire someone, we either strengthen or weaken the organization. I believe that. Our goal is to never weaken it, even if that means extending the onboarding process significantly to ensure it. All too often, we felt like we needed to put somebody in a productive role in order to justify their pay, but oftentimes we cost ourselves more revenue in doing so. So we don't do that anymore. That's it for me. I appreciate your time and attention, and hope that it was helpful.
John, thanks so much for sharing your story with us, and really a job well done to you and the Germain team over the last year and a half.
Thanks, Mike.
We're now going to open up to a little fireside chat. This will be moderated by our friend Jamie Butters, who is the executive editor of Automotive News. And in his role at Automotive News, Jamie leads all U.S. reporting teams, as well as production of the print publication and online reports. He joined the Automotive News team as its chief content officer in 2018. Now, Butters has covered the auto industry in Detroit for more than 2 decades. First was at the Detroit Free Press as a reporter and editor, and then a stint at Bloomberg News Detroit, mostly as an editor and team leader. On a personal note, Butters' first auto show was in Tokyo in 1997 when he wrote about a new kind of car called a hybrid, and how Toyota saw that as a stepping stone to cars powered purely by electricity and eventually by hydrogen fuel cells. A pretty prescient experience for you, Butters. He started out studying journalism at the University of Iowa, graduated with a degree in finance from the University of Kentucky, and also studied the economy of China as a Knight Wallace Fellow at the University of Michigan. Jamie, we're so glad to have you to moderate this fireside chat with John and Adam. So I'll let you take it away, pal.
Great. My pleasure to be here. Thanks again, John, for, as Mike said, for sharing your story. I do want to encourage everyone to send in questions. I have plenty of questions for you, but if the audience has questions, please put them into the chat, and I'll see them there and relay them. I guess the first thing, though, from me, I kind of want to tease apart this seeming paradox about having fewer but better employees at a time when employees are so hard to find. I'm sure there are some dealers out there going, oh, well, that sounds great if I could get all the best ones, but maybe it's hard for them to find the best ones now or to bring back the best ones. How do you tease through that? You talked a little bit there at the end about the importance of referrals and all that, but take us a little deeper into how you really secure the best employees, the better employees in these difficult times.
I think you have to be intentional. I mean, the one of the things that in our mission, as Adam mentioned, is the goal is to attract, develop, and retain. Attracting, that's the recruiting piece. Developing is continual training, but retention, requires intention. We start that by, asking everybody, where they want to be in 1 year, 3 year, 5 years. I think my goal is that everybody that we hire stays with us for their entire career. That may be Pollyannish or idealistic, right? But I think that's how you have to look at it. So the question is, do you have a culture, right? Are you engaging with your people in discussions? What drives retention? So the key to not having a hiring problem is not having turnover. So, again, it goes without saying, but I don't think in our industry, oftentimes we're intentional enough about retention of associates. So I think that's the starting point.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, well, that is a high ideal, but it's good to set your targets high. No turnover whatsoever. Adam, what do you see out in the rest of the industry? Is this the way? How unusual is John out there in the market?
Well, I mean, John is a pretty unusual guy, I have to say. And that, if I look at an automotive group that's continually in the top 1 or 2% of operators on the human capital side of the business, I look at Germain. I mean, they're always pulling, the status quo instead of following it. And I think, to his great advantage, performance-wise, as he demonstrated. I mean, those gross profits per head numbers are eye-popping. How is it possible we can make more money with fewer people in a business where, the last time we all got together, everyone was wondering about how to have enough people standing on the floor to take all the ups that would walk in the front door? Well, I think those days are gone, frankly. Everyone's doing this now, either by intention or by default. It is a fact that dealerships are operating with lower headcount today than they did 2 years ago. Now, if that's by design and with intention, you can turn that into some pretty special operating outcomes. If it's by default, it's likely that you feel busier than you did 2 years ago because you're understaffed relative to the inefficient retailing processes that you had in your store. And so, listen to John talk. I mean, I can imagine, if I was speaking at an event 2 years ago and I recommended that retailers closed up shop at 6 p.m. on a Friday, that people would be apoplectic and never come back to hear me ever again. Like, are you kidding me? You can't do that. This is a retail business. Didn't you know that? Well, I don't know. If you're doing things like shifting to orders, front loading the process, set it with expectations and just, navigating a completely different buying experience and doing it in a way that generates the kind of results John just shared. Do you need to be open till 9 p.m. on a Friday? I don't think you do, right? You just don't need to do that. And so what about our industry changes when you take the grind out of it? It's so much possibility unleashed from a human capital perspective in terms of the kind of talent we can hire when we design our process around what the consumer wants and we start to treat job opportunities like the products that they are and target them at the consumers that we want to bring into the business. It's just a different way of doing it.
Yeah. So, John, when you do get the referrals and you find somebody who you think is going to be a fit, who seems to have the right skills, take us a little into how you do the onboarding. What kind of training do they have? How long does it take before, if they're a sales associate, how long does it take before they can be put on the floor? How does that work for you?
Yeah, I mean, I think, the key to recruiting is, do you know what you want? Do you know what works for you? I mean, have you taken time to sort of, really think through what you're looking for? I think that's a starting point. The point that you bring up. So attract, develop, retain, right? We got pretty good at attracting with Adam and Hireology's help, right? We built career sites. We have people dedicated to that process. So we got pretty efficient at the hiring part. Still had turnover, most of it in the first year, right? And I was frustrated. And the thing is we weren't spending enough time training and developing, right? We were trying to do it at the store level. So we built Germain Academy, which was a dedicated, commitment to continual development. And I can assure you, our average tenure went up and our turnover went down as we invested more training. We train everybody in the organization continually. We made a commitment to it. That helps a lot if the goal is to, improve the quality of your workforce, fewer but better. It starts with having an intentional development strategy, because that's how you're going to increase average tenure and reduce turnover. So training, commitment to training. I don't think there's any way to achieve success without that. To your question on onboarding. So this sounds bad, but I'm going to say it anyway. So I don't want to bring anybody in the organization that's worse than my worst person. Because in essence, if I do that, I weaken the organization, right? So my goal is to wherever that minimum standard of performance is, right? If I don't at least meet that or elevate beyond it, I'm getting worse. So what's the point? Why would I hire somebody to make myself worse? It seems silly, right? So the problem is that oftentimes we hire people because we're trying to deal with a coverage issue or a headcount issue, and coverage goes back to hours, by the way. So, and we're paying them, so we feel like we have to get something from them when we put them to work. The problem is they're not skilled yet. They haven't been trained. They haven't been, and they do more damage than good. And that's what I think we really learned was when we eliminated the mistakes and the less skilled people from the productive work, that alone, elevated performance. So I think the answer to your question is as different as the individual. Until they can demonstrate competence, you don't put them to work. You train, you shadow, you do it as long as you need to. And I would even go as far as saying, if you hire someone and they can't get to that competence level, you don't ever put them to work.
Well, so that leads right into another great question from the audience is, it's not necessarily clear, especially as you're looking for a different set of skill sets. It's not always entirely clear who is going to be better than your worst person, right? And maybe this goes back to how you market those jobs, but how do you identify or just avoid turning off, the person who might have the right skills, but maybe doesn't have experience in a dealership and thinks, well, it's probably not the job for me, even though they might have some of those skills that you really want?
Well, I think, there's a plug for employee referrals, right? The perception of our industry and who we are. I mean, it's up to us to deal with that. We try to do it through our career site, right? We try to educate people a lot about who we are and how we think and how innovative and digital we are, right? Basically trying to change perceptions and talk about the opportunities and the possibilities that exist. So we're always trying to leverage, the reality of who we are and what we do and what we believe in versus whatever the perceptions are. So I think you have to, again, be intentional. You have to, that's a marketing strategy. It's not, I believe that is selling a car, right? Investing money in a career site. You're welcome, Adam. Is actually selling cars, right? Because I'm attracting a higher quality of individual. Adam said it earlier, and I've said it a long time. I believe traditional experience is a liability in today's marketplace, right? So by the very nature of trying to hire talent and skill and not experience, you better be a learning organization You better have training and be committed to it, because otherwise I don't know that you can. I think that's the right way to go, but we had to develop a training academy to be able to hire those people that you're talking about. But once we did, and they walked in on day one of their orientation and they saw, a dedicated space and a training director, it changed the way they viewed us. And I think it anchored them as they enter the organization.
Yeah. Adam, do you have anything you'd like to add to that? I know John's evangelizing for you pretty well, but you might have a few details you'd like to add.
Well, I mean, conceptually, recruiting is a sales and marketing process. It's recruiting, like selling, is a transfer of trust. And one of the questions, to the panel here is, I struggle with focusing on experience and deterring valuable applicants from applying because they come from a different industry. How do I address that? Well, you ask the question, what would someone moving from another industry into automotive be worried about coming in? You can anticipate those things. You're having these conversations, and someone coming into the business is going to be worried about pay plans. They're going to be worried about retail hours. They're going to be worried about, hey, I heard there weren't any cars to sell. Is that true? How do I make money if we don't have vehicles? What kind of flexible workplace policies do I have? I'm coming from an industry that's got X. What does this have? These are all common questions, trying to understand, is this an industry for me? And so what you do is you preempt those objections. You answer those questions up front, knowing the profile of your ideal, career industry transferee, and you have a section on your career site dedicated to switching careers or industries, right? Considering automotive, right? And just talk about it. All the media today, the labor stories are all about hospitality and service industry workers realizing that there are better opportunities for the same or better money with a lot less grind. People who can hustle and get it done and have, kind of wired for consumer experience, but looking for something better. We are something better. And I think we have to market to those individuals very, very specifically and intentionally, to use John's word.
And career path is such a huge part of that too. I mean, at some point, being intentional about a career path, I think those folks that you're talking about, right? If I want to keep them and I'm going to get them to come into my industry, right? I have to have a path. And I think that changes based on the individual, right? I mean, we hired someone from Vroom recently, to come in. And so we're reversing back. I mean, I'm interviewing data science people and AI people, right? Because I have that information. I have partners who manage that for me, but I need somebody inside the organization that can facilitate and champion that activity, right? So, we really I question everything around me. I mean, it's just my nature, right? And wonder why, why do we do this? And does this still make sense? And in an environment that's changing constantly, you have to question your processes. You have to question everything that you're doing and just say, does this still work? Does this still make sense? Does it align? And not, I think it comes down to, not resisting change. It's about embracing change and accepting the realities of the world that we're living in. I think, so, you find yourself in new and different places a lot, but, there's a lot that goes in. We've had success bringing these folks in. I've got people that have come into the industry directly out of college with no previous experience and have moved rapidly up through our organization and are doing remarkable things for us. So, there's lots of, and there's lots of good stories to tell.
We're getting a bunch of great questions from the audience. I want to just keep channeling those to you. This one you kind of touched on, even a little with that last answer about career planning, and really giving a lot of thought to the individual's needs. But we have a question particularly about retention with sales staff. Do you think retention bonuses have any value, or is it really around things like flexibility and future opportunity? And if they're if they just, how do you try to think about things like that, if that feels like a useful lever or not?
Yeah, I think if you're doing it right, you don't need incentives and spiffs. I've been very blessed, right? I got 20 stores, and I've not had a GM leave in I mean, I can't remember, right? They're all very talented. They could go other places and make, probably more money, and they get recruited all the time. They don't leave because of the autonomy and the culture and the environment that they work in. So my point is with that is money's important, but anybody that's been in the automotive industry any amount of time we all have worked in good cultures and bad cultures, good environments and not so good environments. When you lead from there, right? I think if you're truly committed to trying to retain people, and it starts with culture, it starts with your leadership. It absolutely starts with your leadership and the people that you put in charge, because the cultures are a reflection of whoever runs the place. And you do have to stand for something. I mean, we have mission and core values. A lot of people do, but we don't make any decision or do anything that doesn't align to it. So I think, again, I used to think mission statements were sort of fluffy, but I don't anymore. I mean, we really, we took our time. I think it reflects who we are. And so I think you got to stand for something, and you gotta, you gotta be committed to it.
Yeah.
Another question. Oh, go ahead, Adam.
Well, I think retention is about meeting expectations. And, that doesn't get talked about often enough. You can set big expectations, but if you fail to meet them, you break a promise. And that's when, the process of that person exiting your organization begins. And there's a question in the chat window from Martha. Hello, Martha. What happens if I have 2 stores? How do I do this? Right? How do I sell career path if I've got 1 or 2 stores? Well, you don't sell what you don't have, right? You don't set yourself up to miss expectations. What you do is you highlight the things that you believe someone is going to find positive. So, if you're a Germain and you've got now 20 stores, congratulations, John, by the way, you've got, a large platform. What you're offering is, diversity of product, the ability to move around the organization, the ability to change roles, scalability, your career. You can work here forever. Look at how big this can be. 1 or 2 stores, you're not offering that. What you're offering is the opportunity to work directly with ownership. You're offering the ability to be a core member of the team. And if you feel like, look, if I can get 2 or 3 good years out of people before they graduate to some bigger opportunity, you know what? That's a good model also for smaller platform operators. And so what I'm saying to people is, look, I'm going to, if you join us, I'm going to ask for 3 years.
Right.
And at the end of 3 years, you can tell me you want to leave. You can tell me you want to stay, and I hope you stay. But what I can promise you is at the end of 3 years, I'm going to get you ready for whatever's next in your career. I hope that's here, but it could be somewhere else. Both are great outcomes, but I guarantee you we're going to get there together. I can do that with a single point store in the middle of nowhere. Right? I can get you ready and deliver on that expectation. And if that's what I promise coming in, that's okay. Right? Not everyone can offer employment for life.
You've got to ask that question, though. I mean, that's the key, right? I mentioned earlier, right? Where, whether if it's a new employee, where do you want to be in 1 year? If it's an established, where do you want to be in 3 years, 5 years? Do you know the answer to that question? If you haven't asked, you don't know. If you don't, Adam mentioned, alignment, meeting expectations. If you don't know what they expect or what they aspire to, then you can't align with it, right? So it starts with, have you asked that question? And do you know? And that's what I push on my managers is when I can get somebody to the switch to flip for them to go from working for me to saying, this is where I want to be, right? This is where I want to be. And that doesn't happen quickly, right? But there is but once people go there, I mean, they start to act differently and think differently. They start to behave with a long-term view. We've all been in that situation. It changes how we operate. And I think it makes us better. So my goal is always to try to flip that switch for as many people as I can, right? I want everybody to say, this is where I want to be. And so how do you do that? You do that through relationships, connection, communication, but it starts with asking those questions.
Another question is, I think maybe we're looking at the rest of the business. What do you see as the biggest threat to the retail industry? Obviously, there's COVID brings a lot of baggage, including the sort of the chip shortage and the vehicle shortage sort of come out of COVID. But how are you grappling with that, and what are the other sort of front burner issues for you?
Well, I've referenced this a couple of times. There's a lot of speculation in the marketplace about everything, right? Where are the cars? What about the chips? What about electrification? What about this? What about that? Don't be left behind, right? If you don't do this, this is going to happen to you, right? So I finally, decided that nobody knows. I mean, nobody knows what's going to happen for sure, right? And I don't even need to know, but I need to be able to move in the direction that the market, when the market does decide to move, or decides that it's going to fully embrace electric or not, right? I need to be able to move, change, and align with it. So I think speculation is a loser's game. At least that's my opinion, right? So I just need to make sure that I hire people, create an organization that is adaptable. And I said it earlier, I think it's the most important commodity for any business, especially in our business, right? But do you embrace change? Do you build that into your culture? Do you build that into how you hire? Do you ask for and expect that, of your folks?
Adam, did you have anything you want to add to that?
Well, John said it so well. I mean, we're not here to forecast the weather, I guess, but kind of run through the checklist of the things you can control. Can you control manufacturers' stair-step programs being, evil and harmful? No. Can you control tax policy? No. Can you control EV incentives for consumers? No, you can't. You can control who you put on your payroll and how you conduct business. That's about it. And John nailed it on adaptability. That said, and completely different conference to be talking to this topic, but I think the emerging threat to the retail model as it currently exists is the fact it's like what happens to fixed cost absorption when we are servicing vehicles with 4 or 5 moving parts? Like, we're going to sell a lot more tires and wear and tear items because EVs, have to be serviced differently on that stuff. But like the whole notion of how we make money and pay for fixed costs is going to change. And it's not going to matter until it really matters. And when it really matters, it's, this becomes a scale game really quickly. And this is, again, is way off topic, but since you asked that, I think about that, like what are you doing in terms of staffing your fixed operations and planning for a day when you're selling as many wrench turning jobs as you are now? When does that happen? Does it happen 5 years or 10 years? I don't know, but it will happen. Like it's going to happen. And it's like the slowest moving freight train coming right at you in your P&L. And that problem is a people problem, staffing issue. I'll just stop there.
Well, you bring up a good point, right? We have a lot of brands. I mean, we have like 85% of the industry covered, right? We have all the tier 1 luxury brands, Honda, all the domestic brands, right? So, and everybody's approach to all these issues, right, is different. Some are all in, right, with electrification. Toyota and Honda are stepping back like they often do and say, we're not so sure. So I've always believed that strategy is situational, right? Every franchise, every market, and every group of people within each store is unique. So you game plan to your situation, you game plan to your talent. That doesn't mean you're, stick your head in the sand, but at this point, like I said, the analogy I lose is get out on the front of the boat, right? And stick your head out and look for logs, right? And I mean, just, stay focused on the realities of your markets, track the data, know your market, look for changing dynamics, right? And when it's appropriate, start to make those adjustments. You're right; those long-term issues are very interesting ones, Adam. And we're expanding service, right? We're investing. I think fixed operations, used cars. There may be a cottage industry, right? For when somebody's favorite vehicle stops getting built, right? There's going to be a lot of people that we're going to look like Cuba, right? We're going to have cars on the road for 10, 20, 30 years, right? People, who knows, right? So there's opportunities. There's always some aspect of major changes like this that we didn't anticipate or expect. I think the fixed business is going to be hugely important. I think the revenue opportunities for the retail dealer, like you said, Adam, they may shift. We're already making money in different ways than we ever have before. I mean, last month was a great example as, new car volume drops by 25% and goes back to, 2010 levels. We still did fine. We sold more used cars. We fixed finance, right? So, you again, a willingness to reinvent yourself as those realities come up, are all you can control.
Yep.
We're getting a little tight on time, but I wanted to ask one other. We talked a little about some of the smaller groups, but I'm wondering, with a larger, medium to larger size group like yours, John, how do you push that sort of culture change down through your organization? How do you get all your general managers, your sales managers across 3 states, to embrace to pick up on what you're putting down?
You evangelize. I mean, you said it. That's probably my number one job. I'm in every store twice a month, right? Sitting with the general manager and the groups, and I'll sit with we acquired 3 stores this year. I'm in Arizona right
Congratulations.
now at a new store, right? And what am I doing? I'm meeting with everyone, right? Managers as a group, individually, because it starts with me, right? If they can feel a connection with me in my role, right? So that I think it requires an intentional effort by someone at the top of the organization that defines the direction, that defines who we are, right? It's my job to help everybody understand who and what we are and why we do why is probably the most important piece, right? Especially generationally, they want to know why we're doing what we're doing, and instead of just saying this is what we're going to do, go get them, right? There has to be a discussion of why we do what we do and what we believe in. I think that makes it. I think it solves a lot of those problems. So, and I expect my general managers to do that work, so that means they have to be able to evangelize. They have to have those skills and abilities. It's not enough to just do the work. They have to be true leaders, right? They have to spread the gospel, so to speak, and push it down through the organization. They're the ones. I have my, my role, but I think ultimately, if you do it right, the best cultures are self-policing. When you really sell it hard and people really buy into who we are and what we do, they monitor and police, the violators on their own.
Well, like you said, if they know why, they can continue to think and they can adapt themselves and send ideas up to you about how to follow through on the why.
And then they take ownership, right? Ownership starts with being part of the decision-making process on why we do what we do. So we try to give everybody a seat at the table. It doesn't mean I'm going to do exactly what you want all the time, but you're going to have a seat at the table and you're going to have a chance to give input, right? And you're going to get a chance to hear my perspective too. So I think it's collaborative is a cliche term, but continuous, candid communication is foundational. And so you have to create forums for that, both at an organizational level and at a store level. Continuous, candid communication with everyone solves a lot of problems.
Yeah, that's great. Adam, did you have any closing note you wanted to add on, or just?
I mean, I could not say it, possibly say it any better than John just did. So you heard it from one of the best.
Okay, Mike.
All right. Well, John, Jamie, Adam, thanks for that terrific conversation. And thank you to our audience for those thoughtful questions that you submitted. It is, as I think John astutely pointed out, if we really want to know what we seek from others that'll be a part of our organization, we must first know ourselves and our business. What better way to do that to tap into people who know your business yourself the best than your employees for those referrals. So with that, everyone, we are going to take one final break before we dive into the last session featuring Napoleon Rumteen from Tekion. So we will be back here at 3:15 Central Time. And if you could, as a reminder, please scan that QR code to help our friends at Automotive News out by taking their DE&I research survey. All right, see everyone at 3:15. Okay, welcome back, everyone. At this time, I am pleased to welcome and introduce our next speaker, Napo Rumteen, who is Senior Vice President of Commercial Operations for Tekion. Napo joined the Tekion team in October of 2018, and today he's responsible for expanding the company's presence in the automotive industry, and doing so oversees all of Tekion's marketing, sales, implementation, and partner success teams. Busy guy. Additionally, Napo is involved in developing Tekion's worldwide strategic initiatives. He brings over 28 years of automotive sales and service experience to the table at Tekion, and additionally is an entrepreneur himself, founding a company, Germain, in 2007, which was an online video training platform that identified best practices nationwide for OEM and dealership sales and service departments. He holds a US patent on algorithm-based mobile device video decision trees. And joining Napo is Joe Castellino, who is the service director at Stevens Creek Volkswagen in San Jose, California. Joe has over 15 years of automotive retail experience at top performing teams in fixed operations. Joe is also currently serving as service director at Stevens Creek Volkswagen, located in the heart of California's Silicon Valley. And in his role at Stevens Creek VW, Joe leads all efforts to completely digitize and modernize the parts and service department, including going completely paperless for all dealer processes and consumer experiences. Prior to his time at Stevens Creek Volkswagen, Castellino worked as a service advisor at the Chapman Automotive Group based in Phoenix, Arizona. Joe also studied law at the University of Arizona. Napo, Joe, welcome aboard. Take it away.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. Appreciate it. Really excited to present in this forum video. My name is Napoleon Rumteen. I go by Napo for short. And on screen, you see my email. So if anyone wants to contact me, feel free to do so. Would love to connect via LinkedIn. I will shortly formally introduce my co-host, Joe. I want to save it for the dramatics, but he's a very special operator and one of the most progressive thinkers in the space. So I think you'll get a kick out of hearing from him. Again, when this event was brought up to me, I was really excited because I know the focus is on people. And so I thought about what topic would be great, obviously relevant to the company that I work for and what we do. Being part of a technology company, it just made sense to talk about how technology intersects with people, both your customers, your employees, and my company's really deeply involved in doing this right now as we go to dealers, and we're an end-to-end platform. We are specific. People correlate us to a DMS space, but the platform is so much beyond that. But when we go into dealers and we are implementing technologies, DMS and beyond, there's such a heavy focus on personnel and so much on change management. And after all, I firmly believe, being in the business for such a long time, the car business is a people business. And even though there's a significant trend that's increasing towards remote and digital communication, transactions, more automation, in this business, you still have to know people and create the right environments for them and help facilitate and enable them to have that positive and meaningful experience. Again, both as customers and employees. So with that, when I look to provide solutions to our dealer partners, it always starts from an area of improvement. So we take the approach of what problems need solving. And it's usually the first question that we ask. And we travel nationwide, talking to dealers, and the three areas that it comes down to is technology, employees, and customers. And we begin with technology, specifically outdated technology. It's funny because we've actually had dealers tell us they've hired really good talent, and they come in, and then sometimes they look at the platforms that they're going to be working with, and they quit. And that's on one end of the extreme. And on other ends of the extremes, you have more serious issues like privacy and compliance that are at risk, and how to adapt and adjust to some of those needs that are happening right now. But when we look at the technologies, they're outdated, they're not as updated, And it really does have an impact on the way people work. And especially when you take into consideration the disjointed integration pieces from the volume of technologies that dealerships use. And if I go to another NADA or JD Power and Associates and I hear an expert say dealers have to embrace technology, I kind of want to march those people into a dealership and say, look how many different technologies these people are using. But the problem is when it's integrated or tries to be integrated, it has that Frankenstein model. You know, Frankenstein's got a leg from here, an arm from there, an ear, a nose, it walks, it talks, but it just doesn't feel and function right. And so a one seamless platform, or as much of a seamless platform you can have to operate your end-to-end operations, is really the critical solution for this disjointed integrations. And of course, when you've got disjointed integrations, there's a lack of visibility. And visibility to your business, visibility from department to department, and that really impedes dealerships' processes and workflows. And then so they start creating different reportings and workarounds to be able to try and make sense of their operation. The next part that we get a lot is the employees. The employees want to have a sense of purpose. It's really important because they want to solve problems and they want to make a difference. And they also want to be in the know. John touched on it at the tail end of the last segment. It's really, really important. They want to know the whys behind certain things. And the days of, you know, it's smart to be stupid or keep it simple, stupid, and some of these cliches that we've heard in decades in the past, that simply doesn't exist anymore. And then lastly, it's really important for employees to work for an outcome and not output. And there's a big difference in that. You know, you see a lot of people say, oh, this person's a high output individual, or they work really hard. And look, we've all been there. Sometimes we get buried in meetings all day, and then all of a sudden we come up for air, and there's 3 to 5 things that were absolutely critical that we couldn't get to. And there's an old saying, if you want to stay busy, there's enough you can find to keep yourself busy. So the key is every day and how the environment we provide for our people and enable them. Are they working towards an outcome? Or is it strictly output? And that makes a really huge difference in the employee's psyche and their sense of accomplishment. And then, of course, last but not least, I'm going to use the word customer as generic, but I know some people refer to customers as guests or consumers. So please indulge me for using the terminology customer. The customers want efficiency. They want to know what they're doing is productive, even if it means coming in and, you know, servicing a vehicle or anything that's asked of them to execute, filling out a credit application, as long as it's productive at the right time. And speed is power. If you have speed, you absolutely have power, and they want to speed everything up. And it's very important for them. And customers also want to be in the know. It's really, really important for them. There's nothing scarier to any individual in terms of not knowing what's going on and the way you're being led. You know, years ago, I used to hear in retail, go control your customer. Well, customers are not people to be controlled. Customers like the way you're leading them. They'll follow. And that's really how it should be. So when they're in the know and they understand the direction in which you're going to guide them, they will be more amicable. And there's a significant reduction in friction that you would see, whether you're on the sales side of the operation, the service side, and again, also the internal customers. And with that, I'll begin with a personal story, if you'll indulge me. So I have a Range Rover, and I called Range Rover dealership just last Thursday. And the wheels were scuffed up from parking badly, and I own that. And I purchased this is the dealership that I originally purchased my vehicle from, and I purchased a wheel and tire package, and it came with the original purchase, and excited to have it, and I was excited to actually say, oh, now I can apply it. But I've owned the car for almost 2 years, wasn't sure how long the warranty was for. So when I called the dealer and I spoke to the service advisor, and I said, can I schedule an appointment? I'd like to see what the expiration is on my wheel and tire protection. And the service advisor replied by saying, well, I can schedule an appointment for you, but I don't know when your warranty expires. So I said, well, I bought the warranty from you. It's a service call. It's a service warranty. You don't have visibility to it. And the advisor turned to me and said, yeah, crazy, right? And, of course, with my history in retail and understanding what some of the technology platforms are, I immediately recognized that Service Advisor does not have visibility to what was sold on the sales side. And of course, that's a problem we want to solve. But I totally understood, and I was sympathetic. And then I asked, okay, well, what's procedure? It said, well, you need to check with finance, and I'll transfer you. So I get transferred to a phone tree, and in my mind right now, I'm taking a step backwards because that's how I got to the advisor to begin with. Now I select from options. I'm connected to a salesperson. Salesperson transfers me to finance, and of course, I get a voicemail. I leave a message. Hour later, I get a call, and they confirm the warranty with me. And then I had to call back and schedule a service appointment because now I knew what my warranty looked like, et cetera. And I just kept on thinking about this from, first of all, from the service advisor's experience. And I can tell he felt a little embarrassed. It was such a norm that he had to deal with. And when he just said, yeah, crazy, right? I just realized the limitations that they have in terms of visibility and how that affects the customer experience. And of course, for me as a customer, the fact that I needed to hunt down the information was a significant compromise in efficiency. And of course, poor use of time, which was very difficult for me to accept, but I understood this and I was going through it. So, with that said, having been in the business for a very long time, since 1993, and having spent half my years in retail, all my best friends are car dealers, I get it. And I understood, I got the technology limitations and the effects of it. So respectfully, if you have this lack of visibility in your operation, I highly recommend reevaluating for that user experience, both internally and externally. And with that, I'd like to transition with an experience, and I'm big on storytelling, and I feel like that is a significant part of an experience. And I'd like to take on a service experience and take you through a service journey and something that's really tangible and specific. And even if you're not part of the service department, you'll appreciate the way this story is told and some of the effects that it has. So again, with your permission, I'd like to take you through the service journey and highlight the power of technology and how it affects all the people that are involved. Now, what I'm sharing with you right now is an end-to-end service experience. And it starts up top. If you look at this as a wheel and you look at it from a clock perspective, it starts with a service need. It starts with a customer having a need for service and reaching out. Or if they've been contacted from a dealer BDC, what have you. If there's a service need, it moves on to scheduling an appointment or walking in. There's an opportunity to sell, and we like to put a selling opportunity right up front with the scheduling part, which we'll talk about, and I think you'll appreciate what's involved in that experience. Dropping a key and having an express service, having a connected experience with a video, with a monitor outside to welcome you upon your arrival, all the way from mobile check-in to digitizing the MPVI process, which is a tremendous part of your operation and a big revenue source, through the collaboration of external, internal texting, having a payment function that you could do it remotely and digitally, a guest portal that's like a personal URL, and of course an express pickup. So we're going to take you through this journey. And along the way, I want to be able to address some of the specifics that are involved. And I think one thing that you'll appreciate now is the introduction of Joe Castellino, service director for Stevens Creek Volkswagen. Again, Mike did a really nice job of introducing him, but Joe and Tekion have been partners for a little over 2 years. We've come to know each other. He's really boosted and shot up the ranks as a VW operator. He's ranked 5th in the nation. They do approximately 80 to 100 ROs. He'll share more statistics with you as we go, but he's an incredibly progressive and forward-thinking service director. He's arguably, as Mike said, the first dealer nationwide to go totally paperless. Don't get me wrong, they still have one printer in case someone insists on having something printed out. But their experience can be completely done paperless, and he'll talk about that. I'm not saying everyone here should go paperless, but with the right technologies, the possibilities are endless. And just to be upfront, he's not a Tekion employee. He's just a great dealer partner, but he's taken him technology and he's done his own thing with it, and he's maximized it. And He's happy to share his experiences with those of you who'd like to be able to connect with him and reach out to him. But I've asked Joe to join and chime in as we go through this journey and experience of a service experience with this technology and how he's achieved great operational efficiency. And we're talking increased productivity, better accountability, higher revenues, lower costs, and great customer satisfaction. Again, both internally and externally.
Hey guys, I'm Joe. So yeah, let me start with the story that I think will resonate with all of us. So right within maybe about a month of me rolling out this technology, and one thing that's really cool, and you're going to see in this story, that it fully is end to end, and it's fully like encompassing of everything. It's all on one platform, and that's huge, as you'll see in this story. But nonetheless, we'll get to it. So it's a 2020 Atlas. The customer had bought her car, but 3 days prior, and it starts leaking oil. So she calls to our BDC and says, hey, my 2020 Atlas is leaking oil, and I've got 2 kids in the car with me. I need to get to practice. I need to get on with life. I need another Atlas loaner. I just bought this car, and an onslaught of other problems that all of a sudden arose on why this was inconvenient for her. And luckily for us, our BDC agent had the foresight to type in all of these notes into the appointment. And so when she pulled in maybe 15 minutes later, with our technology that we use, she comes into the service drive. There's an RFID. It greets her. It says, welcome. We'll call her Sarah. So welcome, Sarah. Your advisor, Mike, will be with you. And I believe the story was that the call center put any advisor. So it pinged every single advisor that an advisor would be with you shortly. But with the technology we use, the RFID tags, it tagged the customer, pinged everybody's not personal cell phone, but cell phone, and said, hey, Sarah's here for an appointment. Well, you could click through and instantly know exactly what was going on. So our advisor, Mike, happened to pick it up, and he sees, okay, Sarah just bought this 2020 Atlas. It's leaking oil. She's got 2 kids in the car, and instantly had all this information at his fingertips. So he runs up and he goes, hi, Sarah. And she looks a little confused, like, okay, I didn't have to deal with, who are you? What are you doing? And all these typical questions she gets asked. So he goes, hey, Sarah, my name's Mike. I understand you just bought this car. I understand it's leaking oil. I understand you have 2 kids in the car. I don't have another Atlas loaner here for you, but I've got a Jetta. And you can take that and move on with life for right now. And we can continue. We can look at the car, but you can move on. And she looks confused that she didn't have to repeat herself. She's just, okay. She calls her husband and says, hey, you don't have to come get me. No, they don't have an Atlas, but they've got a Jetta, and that'll do for now. We can get Tim to practice, and we'll deal with the car later. So great. She moves on with her life, and we do what every dealer does. Instantly, we rush the car in, we take a look at it. What could it possibly be? It's an oil pressure switch. So we text her and tell her, hey, it's an oil pressure sensor that we've got to replace. We don't have it in stock. It'll be here first thing tomorrow morning. I'll have an Atlas here in the evening if you want to trade out. Well, she texts back, well, if it's going to be done in the morning, I'll just keep the Jetta and then, let me know when it's done. So sure as everything, at 7:30 in the morning, part shows up, and we do our thing. We install it, and we send her a text. Car's ready. It's like 9 o'clock in the morning. Well, when she gets here, she's demanding to speak to me. And you can imagine, as any service director, any service personnel is enthusiastic about talking to somebody who's demanding to speak with them, because I'm thinking, great, the first thing I'm going to do is get, yelled at, some sort of barrage of anything. But nonetheless, she comes and talks to me, and she tells me, you know what? I got to tell you, I'm very impressed with this whole experience. And you turned a really bad experience into a real positive one. It was just easy. She goes, I made one phone call, and everybody knew what was going on from there. I didn't have to take time out of my day. I wasn't calling for updates. I could see the status of what was going on with my car. I could text Mike when I wanted to. Like, I texted him at 8:30 in the morning just to confirm the car will be ready. And he texted me back in a couple of minutes saying, yeah, they're going on a test drive. She was that right there. I don't care what happens. You've got my business. You have it. Like, if you could treat that bad situation with such perfection, imagine what you could do when I wanted to come in. And that story really resonates to single platform ease of use. And it speaks to a lot of different components on how life just went and how that experience was for everybody involved. The call center agent, she got kudos for doing the right thing. Mike, the advisor, wasn't met with, hey, how can I help you? What are you here for? Things like that. You're talking about just a seamless transaction, personal greeting. So it was easy for both of them. The introduction of technology in that appointment really, or in that whole service appointment, really speaks to what our customers expect.
That's great. Thank you, Joe. And you'll realize we're big on storytelling, and we will like to tell the story. And we'll start from the beginning with so that was one, but we'll start with the beginning of the process, which is a simple appointment process. Now, we're really big on mobile, and we definitely promote the use of mobility. Joe does it as well in his dealership, and that's frankly what consumers want. So, from an appointment scheduling perspective, your technologies should be very configurable. You should be able to have your technology configured in a way that shows the right images that you want, shows videos, has an interface that's real simple, and make the point of entry simple. Very Google-like, as you see here, where there's a call to action and it's very keen. It's the service appointment you can access with a phone number or an email. Once you use a two-step authentication process, now you'll be able to step in and schedule your appointment. And across the top, you'll know all along the way where you are from a technology perspective. But I'd like to draw your attention to the bottom here, where, again, your system should be configurable. This particular example is one where a dealership can have two options. Some dealers say, I want the least amount of clicks and touch points for my customer to get in and be able to schedule an appointment. So there's a quick booking opportunity where you can click once, select the next time and date, and you're in. However, we also have some dealers saying, well, I don't necessarily want that in my service department. I want to know what the job is so I can schedule accordingly, which makes sense. So some remove that. You have the ability to go through a traditional process of scheduling an appointment. And as you do, when you're completing with your appointment, you have the ability to add it to your calendars. It should all be connected as a connected experience. The ability to put it in your Google Calendar, your Outlook, see the picture of the advisor you're going to work with, that has a sense of familiarity, what type of transportation needs there are, locations, directions, etc. So by making this mobile friendly, you can absolutely train your customers when it's a simple technology to be able to get your customers to spend more time scheduling online versus calling in or walking in. And Joe, you've got some experience in terms of how you've worked with your customers to get them to adapt more to online scheduling, which I think is something where most dealers would like to go because it tends to be automated and less manual effort from the dealership staff.
Yeah, actually, this is something that we do, and we integrate this as part of our sales process. But one thing I really want to touch about here, Napo, that I don't think you put enough emphasis on is how easy it is to make an appointment and how fully transparent it is. So it's 4 steps, basically. First step is just logging on to either the app or the website. The second step is identifying yourself. The third one is just selecting what you want to do. Quick booking, great. Like I want an oil change, I want something, or if you really want to type in notes. But fourth is like your Amazon buy it now or just pay for it. You select whatever time you want. And one thing that I love about this system is that's intuitive to say, hey, no, you can't do this work at 4 o'clock in the evening because you can't get it, you can't complete it the same day. So based on a series of selections that the customer chooses, it would offer the right appointment. And I love that for this fact. But what we do, and going to Napo's thing with our customer process, we use our sales team as the intro for the appointment. What we'll do is while they're waiting for finance, when they're purchasing a car, is we make a process out of here, let's set you up. Here's your card. Here's this. This is how easy it is to book an appointment. And we do it on both mobile or the computer, whichever the customer's comfortable with. We show them how easy it is. What we'll do here is we're tagged with RFID. I know a lot of dealers are, but our FID is integrated to our appointments, integrated to the cars, integrated to the whole thing. So what happens is we book an appointment. online, first appointment, and and make it, and so it's easy to go.
Actually, thanks, Joe. RFID will pick up in the next step, but in the following steps. But the initial next step, when we have someone scheduling an appointment, what we truly believe you can do is take that e-commerce approach. Service is kind of like going to the dentist, right? You want to get in, get out with as little work as possible, and you don't want to spend more money. And so sometimes people are apprehensive and they don't want to be sold, and customers and service advisors are apprehensive to try and sell. But we believe that if we move the selling process early and take an e-commerce approach, a very Amazon-like recommendation, I mean, it's already proven to work, and we've seen this work in automotive as well. If an advisor asks for someone business more than twice, it might feel like pressure. But from a digital platform, if you suggest service or recommendations and you do it multiple times, people are likely to click and purchase, and that's proven to be true. And so what we like to do is right at the scheduling time is showcase opportunities for people to be able to select and opt for services. And look, this is something that's not limited to providers, but it's definitely something that you should have within your organization, because it opens up the world of opportunities through all your service customers, and it reduces friction significantly. When we talk about popular services, it's driven by two things. It should be driven by machine learning and artificial intelligence. I know that's a term that's used pretty loosely. People a lot of times tout that. It's really hard to have machine learning and artificial intelligence if your technology is not connected and operating in real time. If it has to push and load overnight or every 4 to 6 hours, it's not as effective. But if you've got an end-to-end machine learning platform, it can study and improve itself and be able to read and study what people opt for, what services are needed, make suggestions. But also you should have the ability to go and manipulate some of these offerings and be able to put your own, whether it's a detailing service, whether it's a promotion to sell new vehicles, whether it's a promotion to buy vehicles right now when there's a shortage. You can make it very easy and be able to advertise it via a price, a discounted price or not. And Joe, I know this is something that you really value and had a lot of success with. You're probably our most successful dealer in terms of utilizing an Amazon-like approach with the transparency that it's offering and the ease of use.
Yeah, I mean, I get a real kick out of the ML. I really love this this technology. So my story to this is I've got two really good experiences with this. So the very first customer that bought his 100,000-mile service also bought a serpentine belt, and I can't tell you why. I can tell you that we did not recommend it, but somewhere somebody told him he needed a serpentine belt, so he bought one. And then what happened is the next guy that wanted a needed a 100,000-mile service, the technology had said, customers who bought this also bought this, and it offered up a serpentine belt. And that guy bought it, and that guy bought it, and the next guy bought it, and the next guy bought it, so much so that my serpentine belt sales went up 201% in 1 month. VW called me and said that you've moved more serpentine belts in 1 month than you have all of last year. Like, what are you doing? And they sent an auditor down here just to see the process when I told them, like, this is what's going on. So much so that they didn't believe me. So when the accessory option for Atlas and Tiguan privacy covers or tonneau covers came out, VW asked me to put it on this, which is where we were able to like force it or choose what we wanted. And I sold the most in the region, and not by a little bit, by 35% more than the next dealer around me, which was phenomenal results on this.
And Joe's being kind. He also has driven a lot of his own offerings, anywhere from filters to detailing services. And we've had dealers get very creative, and we've seen them do a lot of great things with suggested services. They've sold accessories from parts department, promoted fundraising events. I mean, you name it. You have a platform digitally for all of your service customers on a regular basis to be able to put things in front of them, not just once, but multiple times throughout their service journey. And again, it's suggestive. So transitioning from there, and this goes to that RFID technology that Joe was talking about, is vehicle recognition. The modern technologies that dealerships use right now is not just about software, but it connects software with hardware. And again, there's multiple providers of this service, so this is not self-serving for myself, but it is something that I would highly recommend for all dealers to take a look at if they want to have that complete experience for the consumers. It's incredibly connected, and it really provides a warm welcome, because when someone drives onto your lot, immediately they're recognized and there's a welcoming message for them. They get pushed a notification acknowledging that they've arrived. And then it also pings everybody else within the organization on their screens, on their phones, letting them know who's there. And one of the things that I love that a dealership shared with us, it's incredibly powerful, is the hospitality element of it. They train their dealership staff to really hone in that when these notifications come up, by the time the customer is getting out of their vehicle and they want to come and approach. Now, instead of having greeters and so forth, their advisors immediately know who's coming in. They know what the services are, and they have a line that they train their staff to say, "Welcome, Mr. Smith. We've been expecting you." And they immediately talk about the service needs that the customer has. And the feedback from dealers has been, wow, that's been incredible, because you exceed customer expectations when they don't know you, but you know them. And you're able to greet them and you know more about their needs, that immediately gives them a feeling of comfort, as opposed to starting, from scratch and having to explain everything. And I'll tell you, there's an old saying when it comes to the customer satisfaction: you don't have to be the best at what you do. You just have to be your customer's favorite. And if you are their favorite, you win. Now, whether it's in service, whether it's having a inventory of vehicles on the new car side, doesn't matter. As long as you're their favorite, you will win. And that doesn't mean you have to be the best. But when you can do things like this from a hospitality perspective and connect your entire system end to end, that's when you really tap into the power of technology and enable your people. Joe, anything you want to add for that?
This is really cool. So this is where I was explaining what we do with our sales process, very much like Napo just said. In our sales process, we when the car comes off the truck, we tag the RFID immediately, so it's associated with that car. When a customer purchases that vehicle, we transfer their information into the computer system. RFID is automatically associated with it. So what we do to help drive appointments through the online portal and just our own retention is we book the appointment. We have two versions of it. We have the first appointment, which truly is the vehicle's first appointment, but we have something for the initiation or the initial appointment. So what happens is when we see that, salesman will say, "Hey, Sarah, you bought this car. Let's go check out how this thing works." So they'll book the first initial appointment, if you will. They drive under our service drive. The RFID tags them. They'll select it with a particular service advisor or any service advisor, whichever the sales consultant chooses. But then they get a personal greeting. And then our advisors are trained to come up there and say, "Hey, Sarah, we just saw you bought this Jetta. Congratulations. Welcome to the family." And they get to see that whole process. They get to see that, wow, I've never met this guy. And he already knows who I am. He knows this is my first, I'm driving through. He knows I'm just about to buy this car. What that's done for my retention, my customer retention is insane. I'm at 84% customer retention. That is insane. And I blame this technology for that.
Next comes the customer check-in, right? As soon as the customer is greeted, your ability to have your staff function on a mobile device is incredibly powerful. And this absolutely resonates with my experience that I had when there was no visibility from sales to service. It was very frustrating. But one of the things that absolutely empowers your advisors is when everything they need to know about the customer is right there at their fingertips, including what their warranty is, copy of their driver's license, what extended warranties did they buy, the ability to do a walk around and take pictures and videos and be able to store those. it really is operational efficiency at its best, and the ability to operate off of LTE in case there's a power outage. And we've heard that story before, dealers saying, we lost power, we've got people on the drive, we had to turn on cars with their lights so we can have some visibility. But a mobile application that can shift into LT will allow you to be able to write up the customer, be able to check them in, and then all of that sits in a queue and it'll push into your system once the power comes back on. And the ability to check in a customer, even if it's remote, at their house, at their place of work, it really does create a significant amount of power and ease of use versus carrying around with a tablet. But it really provides an increase in productivity, a high increase in accountability, especially when you have reporting that can drill into anything that's digitized, that gets activated with a push of a button. You should be able to run a report and be able to see the progress on. And especially from an expense perspective, it reduces expense drastically because you are able to move much faster. And I know when we spoke with Joe prior to having a mobile check-in process, his drive used to be stretched out all the way to the street. And maybe Joe, you could touch a little bit on how the mobile check-in has been able to help your business in terms of speed and efficiency.
Well, yeah, and actually, I'm excited to talk about this slide because after listening to Adam and John speak, this here really speaks to like the employee, right? Like this talks about having, the technology on the drive, the culture, flexibility, all of this stuff encompassing to what Adam had said. And, to John's thing, like, how would you like to? What options would you like? If you want to come in and sit down, great. But if not, you've got the LTE, you've got the phone, you've got an organic conversation, right? With a cell phone. And I chose the cell phone over tablets because I like the organic conversation. At some point, it's just me and Adam talking, right? It's just two guys talking about what's going on with his car. And I come out and I make a couple of notes. But this is what my employees are expecting. This is what they're experiencing. This is the stuff that really gets the employees on our side when they buy into working for our company, because they look at this technology. What it's done for our customer experience is tremendous too. So prior to having a mobile check-in, we used to have an old paper and, okay, we'll write you up, we'll do this, we'll check you in, let's go sit down, let's do this. Being the 5th largest VW dealer in the country, we're servicing anywhere from 40, 80 to 100 cars a day. My drive isn't that big. My service drive isn't that big. So what would happen is constantly San Jose's finest would sit outside waiting to give us tickets as soon as we backed up onto the street and blocked traffic. And, we're rushing cars in, we're rushing cars out. Well, with this technology, I was able to write 20 cars in, God, I forget the stat. It was like 20 cars in 8 minutes with 4 advisors, something crazy like that. But the experience is amazing in the sense that you don't have to come in, you don't have to sit down. It's not a time-consuming process. It's, hey, Adam, I understand you're a busy guy. If you want to we'll talk real quick about your car, sign something here on the technology, and then you get to move on with life. It's great for this. It's great for all facets of the business.
So obviously the next steps that come in are the presentation of menu selling. Again, this is something where we want to reduce the friction point. So we want to lay it out, have options, side-by-side comparisons. But again, you want to be able to offer those popular services. They're recommended multiple times. Now the customer would see it a second time. They saw it once when they scheduled the appointment. Now, when it's upon check-in, customers also purchased. And look, many of you who go on social media sites, you click on that one ad, whether it's a pair of shoes that you like or a tchotchke that you liked. If you clicked on it, it's going to get served up next time you go on social media again. And it's not annoying. In fact, it'll catch you, whether it's the 3rd or 4th or 5th time. If you like it, you will go ahead and click and you buy. And e-commerce has proven that this is a very effective method. And we've got dealers that we've seen that have had a lot of successes from it. And it's taken a significant amount of pressure off of the advisors from having to sell. But anywhere from being able to do the work, sign off on it, and maintain communication and correspondence, whether it's your staff needs to have internal communication throughout the organization or external, all that should be able to be facilitated with that mobile phone. Your advisors are on the go. Your technicians are on the go. In fact, everyone in the company should have the ability with their mobile phone to be able to engage and communicate internally and externally with the phone within that platform, so that all of your communications recorded, your voicemails are transcribed, and that it can always stay with the system, so you can be able to track it and go back and reference it. So when we talked about a connected experience, once the customer has checked in their vehicle, many of them will wait there and they'll look to wait while the work is being done. In addition to having the external monitor for a customer to see, and the advisors and managers to be able to see when someone's arrived, but the ability to have something in your service lounge that can speak to your customers is absolutely powerful. And here you're able to drive recommendations, notify your customers when vehicles are ready, what position they're in. Again, customers want to be in the know, K-N-O-W, and this is an incredibly powerful way to be able to drive offers in the bottom of your screen, and on the far left-hand side of it vertically is being able to let people know where they are in their process. And then finally, to wrap this up, is the payment. The ability for your customers to remotely, you can push them pictures and videos of services that are needed. They can immediately look at it from a cart, be able to add it, purchase, get the suggestive selling again, make the payment online, and be able to have access, to engage with their advisor right away, see where their car is in service, and then have an immediate feedback loop. This is great on the far right, where you're able to gauge their sentiment before you have to wait for CSI, which is a lagging indicator. Again, get your information in real time, so as an operation, your team can react. And then last but not least, when it comes to pickup, there's the express pickup capability that's really, really powerful. And I know this is one of the parts that Joe really likes to talk about.
I love this, and please excuse the crude setup for the express key lounge, but this is as quick as I could get this off the ground. This was two and a half weeks ago. But this is something that, with the technology that Napo's company Tekion provides, that I was able to change into my customer experience and alleviate a lot of stress for my employees. So what the key lounge is, it's just exactly like John had said. How do you want to do business? Once you've paid through the technologies that Napo's talked about, where you can pay online, we then call you, text you, alert you, somehow say, hey, since you've paid online, do you just want to skip the process, and I'll have your key in this key lounge, where we text you a secure key box. You go, your key's in there. If you say yes, you put your cell phone up to that reader, it shoots your key out, and your car's literally parked adjacent from this kiosk, and your car's right there. You can just take off and go. My customers have raved about this. I've stood out on the service drive and asked them if they wanted to talk about it. They love that it's semi-ghetto, because they understand that it's in the beta mode of it, but it's cool. The technology's there, and this is evolving to both what our customers want and what our employees want. There's no line at the cashier waiting to pay for an oil change. It's there.
Thanks, Joe. So this end-to-end service experience, and forgive us if it came across somewhat of a sales pitch, but it is a sales pitch to embrace technology and empower your people. And whichever technology you decide to go with, by automating it, you are able to create significant efficiencies, drive up your revenues. And I've got to say, really proud. The last shot is Joe's operation. Joe, why don't you go ahead and...
Oh my gosh, I am so proud of this. I've been paperless for 5 weeks, guys, and I couldn't be more proud. This got infectious. My employees, I love this slide. So I had a warranty audit. They come in, I tell them the process I want to do. We make a couple tweaks and figure out that we can absolutely delete paper, which is amazing, because now everybody's on the same page. Everybody's, typing notes into the computer. Everybody can see everything. So there's no, well, who's got this, who's got that, from the parts department, the technician, the advisor, to our customer service consultants, to our BDC agents, to anybody. My GM can't. We can all see what's going on. So as we're lining up the printers, I love this slide. We're lining up the printers. We deleted 16 out of 17 printers. I kept the one that Napo had said, because there's always that one person that needs something printed or whatnot. But we deleted all these printers. We put them on a pallet, and all the technicians, everyone around me was clapping as Denise, that's my parts manager, she's hauling them away to the trash. Like, it was insane. I couldn't believe it. They were clapping. People were saying, can we office space this thing? I mean, the toner, the amount of real estate, the amount of brain damage that this paper is like conditioned us to follow, where I've got to go get this stamp. I've got to do this. I've got to do that. This single-handedly has attracted so many like phone calls, people. I had a technician try to get recruited and he was like, no, I'm good. Like, I've got all this cool technology here. I don't care if you're going to offer me more money. Look what I get to work with. Like, I don't have to walk as much as you do. I don't have to deal with all this stuff. Like, I can just push this from my cell phone or push this from my desktop and it's there. It's instantaneous. My customers love it. My employees love it. It's phenomenal. And my usage rate, granted, guys, I've only used this for 5 weeks now, has been all over the place in the sense that some days it's 84%, some days it's 62%. But it's there, and I haven't even really advertised it yet. I mean, it's just, I'm literally shooting a commercial about it. It's going to say, why save a tree when I can save a forest? You know, I'm talking about 10,000 pieces of paper a week to less than 500 a week. We're talking about all the different toners that we used to talk. We're talking about all of the different printers, the stamps, the pens, the papers, the staplers, the filing cabinets, all of that stuff. You know, it's so well adapted. I'm shocked as how fast it took off, but it got infectious to where my employees are asking me, well, can I throw this away? Well, do we need this file? Do we need that file? Do we need this binder? Do we need that? And I just got to the point where I was like, throw it away. Screw it. If we need it, we'll buy it again. Like, it doesn't matter. Like, just, we'll chuck it. This was really fun to go paperless. 100% warranty compliant, 100% bar compliant in California. Like, we were compliant.
Thank you, Joe. I could tell you're slightly enthusiastic about this. I know we're over by about a minute, so I'll wrap with the following. I know Joe is very passionate about what he's doing, and he's really driven a lot of these. If you want to contact him or even see his operation, I know he's more than happy, if you don't mind, Joe, me speaking for you, but I know he's willing to offer anybody who'd like to visit. But please invest in your people and make sure that it's things that are going to create that level of efficiency. With that, we conclude, and back to you, Mike.
Thanks a lot, Napo, and Joe, you as well. Gosh, Joe, it sounds like you should be advertising going paperless and office space style destruction of printers on your career site. Really connect with the local workforce. But Napo, thanks for bringing it home and tying it back to people strategy. Look, you pointed out at the beginning of the conversation that we want employees and we want technologies that work towards delivering outcomes, not just output. In the way automotive technology is evolving today, like Tekion's tools, they're helping support a type of interaction and output or outcome that requires a completely different type of person, different type of skill set, right? To navigate that technology, navigate the customer journey. So it really all boils back down to how this evolution in our business operations is necessarily what's driving the evolution of the modern workforce in retail automotive today. So last but not certainly least, this afternoon, I am pleased to welcome up to the Zoom stage Joe Fleming, who is going to be sharing more about the benefits of joining NADA's Human Capital Management 20 Group. Joe is the Senior Specialist for Data and Analytics and HR 20 Groups at NADA. He's been with the organization since about 2018, and prior to that, spent a number of years working at various local automotive dealerships throughout Northern Virginia. Joe's experience in the dealership world led him to a position within NADA, where he now manages the annual NADA dealership workforce study, one that Hireology participates in, and I'm sure many of you on the call today are familiar with and have leveraged in your own roles at the dealerships. In addition to the dealership workforce study, Joe is also the HCM 20 Group Administrator. So that's why he's going to be here to give us a lowdown on all the great things that HCM 20 Group is up to and potentially how you can get involved yourself. And with that, Joe, the floor is yours, my friend.
All right. Thank you very much, Mike. And thank you to Hireology for allowing me to speak to you this afternoon. I really enjoyed listening to everyone and appreciate your time. Again, I'm Joe, and I've been with NADA for about 4 years now, and I assist our 20 group consultants here at NADA with their groups and also coordinate our annual dealership workforce study. So I'm going to get into a little bit about our one of our special 20 groups. We call it Human Capital Management, and a little bit about what it is and what a 20 group is. So first, a 20 group is comprised of non-competing members grouped by franchise, dealership department, sales volume, location, travel preferences, and budget. 20 group types include dealer group, franchise-specific, fixed operations, and human capital. The 20 group also offers unrivaled expertise and resources. Each group is led by an experienced automotive retail consultant. These consultants have the resources of the association at their fingertips to help guide their groups on industry hot topics and issues. The Human Capital Management 20 group specifically is our first dealership workforce focused 20 group. We call it HCM1. And we launched this in winter of 2018 and has since grown to 18 non-competing members. So these are stores that do not serve the same market, aren't, do not share the same customers. So there's no exchanging of, price fixing and things like that, or ideas. No, you're not fighting over the same applicants per se either. Members also meet to exchange ideas here in these 20 groups. They discuss hot topics in their field and the challenges they face related to the human capital management at their dealership. And they're led by an assigned consultant. So we have over 20 consultants from all different backgrounds, and they lead your group and the group's meetings each year. The consultant for the HCM specific group, his name is Kelly Smith. He brings over 30 years of auto industry experience to NADA. He's a family business dealership controller and dealer principal, and he has an active 20 group consultant, and he has proven profitable dealer with franchise expertise, including Chrysler, GM, Oldsmobile, and Subaru. Unfortunately, Kelly wasn't able to attend today's event, but I will share his contact with you at the end. The meetings, the HCM specific group, they meet twice a year at an agreed upon location by the group. And typically your meeting is a 2-night stay with 1 full day and then 1 half day of meeting time. Who should attend? So our HCM 20 group is made up of HR directors, talent acquisition managers, and directors of recruiting. Sometimes these members will also bring their GMs or other colleagues with them to the meeting, but not necessarily have to. And the focus of the meeting, topics are discussed range from hiring practices, talent shortages, attracting talent, benefits, what applicants are looking for as far as benefits like paid time off, flexible schedules, remote working, HRS systems that are used or preferred systems, pay plans. The big topic right now, of course, is pandemic, furloughs, vaccine mandates, and women in automotive. The benefits of HCM1, you have direct access to NADA consultants. So you have the expertise of Kelly Smith and all his knowledge, as well as his relationships with all our other NADA consultants, access to our NADA data, such as the workforce study, ongoing support from your peers, new relationships with your peers there. You have exposure to new ideas and new technology, travel and socialization with like-minded people. And I just wanted to show one more slide here. This was some data that Hireology compiled about 2 years ago, showing benefits of joining an NADA 20 group and being a Hireology client. And we showed that those Hireology clients who were also in 20 groups outperformed those that were not in 20 groups in all these metrics you see here. So I thought that was really interesting. And lastly, here's some contact information you can take down, and our link to our website with Kelly Smith's contact and more information on the 20 groups. So with that, Mike, I'll turn it back to you, and thank you all for your time.
Terrific. Thanks for tuning in, Joe. And to everyone else, I can't recommend enough that you check out the HCM 20 group with NADA. I've been involved in various capacities over the last couple of years since we launched those, and can tell you that the members of that group and Kelly, they're always covering new, fascinating, and really challenging topics related to people strategy and people operations in your business. And with that last presentation, ladies and gentlemen, concludes our programming for this year's Elevate. Once again, we are going to be sending out the recording of and slides from today's webinar so that you're all able to rewatch the sessions at your convenience, as well as share them with the colleagues at your dealership who couldn't make it today. Additionally, we will be sharing out responses to some of those frequently asked questions that you all submitted. So please, in the meantime, feel free to reach out at events@hireology.com. And we've been happy to continue the conversation with you, answer any other questions you have generally, or even about Hireology solutions itself. Lastly, I want to just say once again, thank you for being here today and for the fantastic participation that you all submitted. I hope you had as much fun as I did being here. Everyone, I wish you all the best of luck wrapping up the rest of 2021, and cheers to seeing all of your beautiful faces in person next year at the 6th Annual Elevate. Thank you and take care, everyone.